Hi, very good morning and a warm welcome to all our attendee delegate across Asia and other geographics. My name is Ronak Samantray, CEO of GEC Media Group. As some of you know, and many of you may not know, GEC Media has been in existence for close to 10 years, starting off as a technology media publication house, and we expanded and diversified into business, wellness, and events. Our offering are now a perfect blend of physical and virtual activities. We have been created a virtual arena to support our virtual events. And as we see a similar growth in our audience and revenue model, some of our new names, which we included this year, is the Reboot, the Tech Plus Corporate Olympics, and the Brand Voice. The regional and global landscape is fast transforming under the combined influence of pandemic, recovery, and enterprise adopting and adapting to the digital technologies. Enterprise that seals away from cloud, IoT, analytics, remote working, Industry 4.0, and no longer doing so and can afford to do so anymore. The one hard line between the business and the operations and technology are blurring faster and faster. The role, responsibility, effectiveness, and are changing. The automation is in the promise to be a huge draw for many business arrival of the worker bots. Business and operational executives now understand many of the technology buzzwords like cloud, cybersecurity, data integrity, hacks, password protection, analytics, AI, algorithm, data training, and so on. CIOs and CISOs are increasingly learning to talk the jargons of business and the board to make the departmental function more horizontal and overlapping on others. Among all these changes, GEC Media Group envisioned the need of the Business Transformation Roadshow and Summit, a roadshow to represent and showcase the excellence where business technology have successful and compliance on forum for discussions and networking. Hence, the creation of the BTX Road Show started, beginning with the humble start in 2019 with BTX Riyadh. We are back in 2021 with a bang with our fourth edition roadshow. The BTX Asia is our second edition in the lineup, and previously in June in the North Gulf. And we continue with in-person hybrid event on 8th of September in Dubai and wrap up in Africa later this month. So once again, I welcome you all in the BTX Asia today and look forward to chatting with some of you in Dubai on 8th of September in our next edition of BTX Show 2021. And I'm sure today will be a very, very insightful sessions that is lined up, and we are really, really excited to get to know the landscape and the changes in terms of technology and the human race in the Asian region. So I would like to hand over to Anushree Dixit, our Global Alliance and Content Director, to take it from here. Thank you, and have a good day ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all delegates who have joined us from different parts of the world today for the Business Transformation Roadshow Asia edition. It indeed gives us great pleasure to welcome you all today Needless to say, and as cliched as it may sound, the pandemic has changed the world for us. The entire business operations and the structure was turned upside down due to the pandemic. We have been reading various case studies, various business stories about the pandemic as such, and like how business has been evolving to cope up and adjust with the existing working models. But the interesting thing to see here is that how IT as a sector truly emerged as the lifesaver for all business across the world. We saw that business not only transformed internally in the way it operated, but from a structural point of view as well. We also saw that how CIO's role emerged in 2020 and 2021 as the business transformer. The year was also a testament to the role of CEO, CIO, and CFO, and how the varied business roles actually converged to create more successful models for business, both from an internal and from an external stakeholders point of view as well. And as we have been saying for quite long now, technology now more than ever truly became the enabler for business for reasons we know more than one. So the BTX show has been one of the most state-of-the-art events that truly represents the current state of business landscape regionally and on a global level as well. The BTX show has not only showcased some unparalleled case studies from both the private and the public sector, but the event has also brought along various thought leadership models over the last 3 to 4 years of its inception. So in this edition of the BTX as well, we have an array of speakers and presenters who shall be talking about the varied aspects of transformations and much more, also from a regional and once again a global point of view. With that, we hope that you enjoy the show and you also have some great takeaways from the speakers and the various points that they present. We would like to wish you a very good day. Stay safe and take care. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Ronak and Anushree. On behalf of Global CI Forum and the entire team at GEC Media Group at Asia, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to Business Transformation Roadshow BTX Asia 2021. And today we are extremely excited to bring the Asia edition of this roadshow. We welcome our community in our participating countries, Singapore, Hong Kong, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and India. We welcome our speakers and partners and our audiences in this journey to learn, network, and create outcomes for growth in this global network of technology leaders. At the Global CIO Forum, we not only provide our members with an exchange forum for best IT leadership strategies and practices to enhance business results, but we are also developing a strong voice to ensure that CIOs are represented at key industry and government decision tables. In other words, integrate, influence, and impact. With a global network of over 15,000 C-suite executives, our network has grown immensely in Asia. We are proud to put the spotlight on excellent work being done by leaders here in the region. And over the last 2 years, we have brought the World CIO 200 Roadshow to Asia, bringing to you the best of the best leaders and their talents, the behind-the-scenes stories, and so much more. We have also organized for you the Future IT Summit, a grand success, together with numerous web summits. We have also organized reboot get-togethers for leaders here in Singapore to network and create bonds, share knowledge, and build friendships. And this is just going to grow more in the time to come. We have also launched in the region the inaugural Asia edition of Titan's publication, showcasing CIOs' journeys and their learnings in this region. We believe in open network, open knowledge share, and open mindset for all to learn. We are very excited to bring you this edition of BTX Asia, and we would like to invite you to join us in this industry, in this journey with Global CIO Forum to reinforce the vision of one industry, one voice. With that, I would like to hand over to Arun Shankar, editor, GEC Media Group, to start the proceedings.
Thank you, Malvika. Anushri and Ronak for your welcome notes. Good day everyone and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Arun Shankar, editor at GEC Media Group. Once again, on behalf of GEC Media Group, Global CIO Forum and sponsor partners Aruba HPE, Pure Storage, Riverbed, Veeam, Western Digital, Finesse, Veritas, Silver Peak, Archon, Cork, International Group of Artificial Intelligence, and the Global CISO Forum, I welcome all the online attendees to the BTX Road Show 2021 virtual arena. We now kick off this virtual broadcast of the second edition of the BTX Road Show 2021, directed at Asia, hence our Asia edition. We are also now streaming through popular social media channels, including LinkedIn and YouTube. In this Asia edition, we have multiple keynotes on a range of transformation topics, from the digital cockpit to robotics to logistics. And we can also look forward to two panel discussions that will deep dive on transformation in sustainability and artificial intelligence. BTX Roadshow 2021 overarching theme remains the change. But before we begin, here are some short housekeeping tips. All attendees are on mute throughout the session, and we encourage you to use the chat option for any questions. The BTX Virtual Arena will also remain open for you to visit the sponsor booths. And now for the opening keynote, I would like to invite Captain Nivedita Basin, the B787 training captain, who has previously worked 37 years as Executive Director and Chief of Flight Safety at Air India. She'll be speaking on analog to digital to space, a pilot's perspective. So over to you now, Captain Nivedita Basin.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here today at the BTX Road Show Asia. It's a pleasure to be here with all the top people from the industry, and today I'll be sharing my journey. As you can see, I've been a pilot for many years now, 41 years to be precise. 1979 is the time that I first sat in the cockpit of a plane, and that's the year that I started flying solo also. So an age where it was a totally analog cockpit to now where we fly a digital cockpit. We are in the digital world. We are surrounded by technology, whether it's social media, whether it's instruments, whether it's our flying, our reporting, our training, weather reporting, everything has turned digital. And what a pleasure it is to be surrounded by this technology that we can use to the best of our ability and to make life so comfortable and enjoyable. Growing up, I was the younger of two girls, and thereafter my little younger brother was born. So till I was 8, we were just two of us. My parents brought both of us girls in a way that they did not differentiate between a boy or a girl. They allowed us to do everything that our hearts wanted. We rode cycles, we fell on the road. Nobody bothered. They allowed us to do anything. It was a time when I'm talking about the actually the mid and the late 60s. I still remember I would be sitting in my neighbor's house in the living room. We would be around 9 or 10 children, and we would be watching a serial. And guess the name of that serial. It was Star Trek, none other than Star Trek. And to watch the Star Trek, to watch the starship flying into space, hurtling into space. And I can never forget, even though William Shatner may have never said it, but I still remember the words, "Beam me up, Scotty." And also the tagline, "To boldly go where no man has ever gone before." This was the way my life began. And today, After more than 37 years of airline flying, here I am sharing my life's journey with you and glad to share a part of it today. Of course, 15 minutes is a very short while to encapsulate 37 years of airline flying, but I shall do my best. I'm going to talk about how life has changed, how life has evolved from flying, from making wooden aero models to flying gliders, which were totally glass, totally fabric and wood, and to flying the most advanced, beautiful Dreamliner. The 787 Dreamliner is what I flew presently for the last 9 years, and I ferried the second Dreamliner from Charleston to Delhi via Frankfurt. What an amazing journey it's been. So let's start. I have a little PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to take you through it. I'm going to talk about the advances in technology, how technology has helped us, how also we have to limit the use of technology, and the perils of automation. We have to know, we have to draw a line between how much is enough, less is more. Children of Magenta, all of y'all have heard. After my talk, I'm sure you're going to Google Children of Magenta. It's a beautiful movie. You all must watch it. So this was my beginning watching Star Trek. And of course, as Charles Darwin has said, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. As a young girl, I was a girl guide, and I learned very early in life to be prepared. That was our motto. And well, all my life I have been prepared with a plan A, with plan B, and sometimes even with a plan C, because as aviators, we always have to think forward. We always have to know what the aircraft is going to do 10 minutes ahead of our time, whether the co-pilot is flying, whether the captain is flying, or anybody. We have to know what to expect. That's how we act. And then this brings me to the startle effect. Last year, around March, the whole world was caught by surprise. It was actually a startle effect. This is what we teach in aviation, startle effect, and how to resolve the effect by resilience and by training. So today, I think training forms the basis of every activity that we do. Repetition, practice, practice, practice is what my yoga guru, B.K. Iyengar, said. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the better you become. So let's have a look at the PPT. Let's have a look at this beautiful picture in which I'm sitting on the left side in the cockpit of an Airbus 300. So my journey in Indian Airlines began in 1984, where I started flying the Fokker Friendship. And Fokker Friendship, as you know, was a turboprop aircraft, two tiny Dart engines, and 2,000 horsepower approximately each engine. And those were the days of the engines that were powered by water methanol. What is water methanol? It will boost the engines to give you more power during rain, during stormy weather. And now we fly the most sophisticated aircraft. The last aircraft I flew was GNX 1 Bravo 67 and 70. That is 70,000 pounds of thrust in each engine. Totally digital engines, FADEC controlled, full authority digital engine controls, where the engine looks after itself in every phase of flight. So our journey has been long, difficult, challenging, but rewarding nonetheless. So my life began on the Fokker Friendship, two-man crew, 44-seater, total 4 crew in the aircraft. Then I transitioned on to the Boeing 737 JT8D engines, beautiful cigar-shaped engines, and very loud, and the best aircraft that I've flown so far. I can unabashedly say that, the first love of my life. I learned how to fly planes before I started driving a car. And that sounds pretty odd to a lot of people today, but yes, that is what it was. I was looking out of the window one day and dreaming in school, and my teacher, my algebra teacher, threw a chalk on me and woke me up. She was asking me a question, but my attention was totally out of the window. And here I am. For years and years, I've sat in the cockpit of an airplane and I've been paid to look out of the window. That's how life is. It is transient. We know we have to enjoy every moment of what we are given. Life throws up challenges for each one of us, but how we adapt to change is what is important. So when I flew the Fokker Friendship, after that the Boeing 737, thereafter the Airbus 300, and everything was analog. The information was right in front. We had to follow a scan, which was like a T scan, which, on one you would check the airspeed indicator, the artificial horizon, the altimeter, and the heading, as you can see in the picture on the left. Thereafter came the age of the ECAM and the ICAS, where in the Airbus, we have the electronic centralized aircraft monitor. In the Boeing aircraft, we have the ICAS, which is the engine indicating and crew alerting system. Every alert, every warning, every failure is depicted on a screen, and there's an electronic checklist. So life has evolved. After how many years did I see glass in my life? Glass meaning not breaking the glass ceiling. Well, I broke that many, many years back in the year 1984. But when did I see glass really? That was 25 years after I flew the first airliner. So after the Fokker-French Boeing 737, Airbus 300, I transitioned on to the Airbus 330. And for my training, I went to Sweden, to the Oxford Aviation Academy. I had never been abroad for training. This was the first time I was training abroad. And that is why I say change is so important, and you have to adapt and you have to learn to adapt. So this was a new way of life, a new way of living, new way of learning. First time I saw a multifunction display, I saw the glass, and it was really overwhelming. But the training was so good that it did not matter. It did not matter that it was totally new. We were overwhelmed, yes, because for 25 years, when you have flown an airline, and suddenly, you see instruments where they're only numbers, and it's a depiction, it's a figure, it's a depiction of what is in the aircraft, and you have to say aloud the FPAs, the flight path annunciation. You have to say it aloud, and also you realize that you cannot do the other person's work. From a 3-man cockpit of an Airbus 300, I transitioned onto the Airbus 330, which was a 2-man cockpit. And here we are, we had to do exactly what we were supposed to do. The left seat, meaning the captain, had to do what the captain was supposed to do, and the right seat, the co-pilot, was supposed to do what he was supposed to do. You could not do something for the other person because the jobs are so specific. So let's see what all jobs are there. How has automation helped us? In a glass cockpit and an analog, of course, ease of use is there because everything is given in front of you. The reliability is there. In an analog cockpit, you have to look at things. You have to decipher for yourself what you want to see. Where is the information coming from? Which is the most important instrument to see? So all those things are, you are helped in a glass cockpit, where all the information is presented to you in front of you on 2 basic screens, one for the attitude, one for navigation. So one is the primary flight display and the other is the navigation display. So in 2 instruments, everything is in front of you. And if you were lucky to fly the 737 MAX or the 787 like I flew, I had everything. I didn't even have to look down on the instrument panel. I could just look up and there was a heads-up display. If I show you over here in the previous picture, can you see my cursor? And you can see a thing hanging from the roof of the cockpit. That is the heads-up display, where all the information of the primary flight display is replicated on it. So it helps you. You don't have to be heads down. You can keep looking out and you can keep flying. So now I would like to talk about the training aspect. Earlier, so many years back, it was all skill-based. Whatever you did, you had to perform, you had to show your instructors how well you could fly, but now it's all competency-based. And competency in such a way that you have to we talk about UPRT, which is upset prevention recovery training. Thereafter, we are moving into EBT, which is evidence-based training. Over here, we look at a lot of skills which were normally earlier you could not train for them and you could not check them. So these are the 9 competencies that we look at. And alphabetically, if I go through them, there is application of procedures, there is communication, there's flight path management automation, there's flight path management manual flying, then there's knowledge, there's leadership and teamwork, then problem solving and decision making, which is very important, situational awareness and workload management. When we talk about workload management and situational awareness, I think it's very easy to get lost, where a lot of instruments are concerned, because if something fails, you may not be able to make out what has happened and what has failed. So you may lose situational awareness, and in the meanwhile, something else may fail, So these are the perils of automation. We get so used to automation that sometimes we are not able to function without the level of automation that we may have. We are now going to transit also onto TIT, which is the training of aircrew, and training aircrew competency using eye tracking. So if I'm going to look left, the computer is going to tell me that I was looking left, and this is the screen that I was looking at. So these are the advances in technology. It's going to be wonderful. I mean, I'm just talking about flying, but how about space? Wally Wallace, Mary Wallace Funk, Wally Funk, as we know her now, the whole world knows her. I've known her for the last 45 years. She was the first safety instructor, safety investigator with FAA, and thereafter with NTSB. 82 years old, yet full of vigor, full of vitality, enthusiastic, and upright. And if she can do it, then yes, we too can. And this is how we have to get inspired from people like her. It doesn't matter whether she's a woman or it's a man. The aircraft doesn't know, the spaceship doesn't know who's flying it. It's how we fly, how we conduct ourselves. And as the captain of a flight, we have so many people to deal with. It's amazing. I mean, if you're a captain of an aircraft, you can be a captain of virtually anything, any situation. Yes, hours of boredom and seconds of terror. That's what we are trained for. That's what we are paid to do. But it isn't always so simple. Once I was taking off from an international airport, and generally after 400 feet or maybe around 1,000 feet, you would engage the autopilot. The co-pilot was flying, and you engaged the autopilot. And suddenly there was some weather, so we had to deviate. And in the meanwhile, he did not engage the autopilot. And the aircraft, he selected a heading, and the aircraft didn't turn. So yes, there was a minute of loss of situational awareness, and both of us, I mean, not only for him, but for both of us, we lost situational awareness because none of us realized that the autopilot had not been selected. So these are the perils of automation. And this is what we need to know. Even though the redundancy is so high, you can see on the screen, instead of the failures, from the PFD, you can be transferred to the multifunction display, but it's not always so easy. You have to know when to use what. You have to be very particular in using the technology to your advantage. How about weather? So if we go to the next page, we look at weather. Forecasting has become so accurate. We have SIGMETs, we have terminal area forecasts, we have trends, we have hourly trends, to give us the weather. Then we have data mining, and we have benchmarking. So we have so many airlines which take part in a program together called Turbulence Aware. That's an IATA program. It's an excellent program. If an airline is a member of Turbulence Aware, then you can know where are the areas of intense turbulence, where are the jet streams, how can we avoid them, what levels do we fly at, and so on and so forth. It makes our life so much easier. It makes flying so much more comfortable for the passengers as well as for the crew. Then we talk about our long range flying. So we talk about ETOPS, we talk about EDTO, which is extended diversion time operations. Earlier, we could only fly for 1 hour. Now we can fly up to 3 hours on a single engine. And all this is because of the instruments that we use, because of the advancement in technology, because of the communications that we have. When I joined, I was very naive. I was very young. I was hardly 20 years old. And one of the pilots called me to a Boeing 737 and said, when you press a button, you can talk to anybody in the world. And I believed him. And I came out with starry eyes, and they all made fun of me. But today, who has the last laugh? It's me. Because actually, when I fly in a 787, I can pick up my sat phone, I can have a phone patch, I can talk to any person anywhere in the world. So, well, I've spoken a lot today. There's lots more I could speak. I could speak my heart out to you and talking about training, talking about weather, talking about automation, the reliability, and the human factors involved. But I would say, yes, training and safety is so important. We have to be at all times, not only the 5 whys or the fishbone, concept to find out what is the root cause analysis. That's the most important. So that if there's an accident or incident, we never make the mistake again. With benchmarking, with data mining, we can be a part of a bigger conglomerate of airlines all across the world. And that is how it will help us. So instead of thinking that we are a small part of the big world, we have to say the world is a small place where we fly. It's a tiny globe over which we fly with a huge, beautiful billion-dollar aircraft, and we are the ones to keep the skies safe. So I think I've spoken much more than I was supposed to speak. And with this, I think we come to an end of today's talk here. And I'm wishing all of you safe flights. If you are ever scared about flying in a plane high above, do not be. It's the safest machine to be in. Pilots are highly qualified. Safety is paramount in the skies, and we will do anything to keep you safe. And good luck to each one of you, and hope to meet you in person sometime. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Captain Nivedita Basi, for that deep dive on your rich aviation experiences. And now I would like to call Manoj Saxena, Chairman, Rosetta Net, Singapore GS1 Digital Standards, and also Senior Director at Data and Digital Transformation, Maxion Solar Technologies. Manoj will speak on regional trends in business and digital transformation. So now over to you, Manoj.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, depending on where you are globally. I'm excited to present the Rosnet Singapore and Global CIO ventures here together, the key partnership which we're doing together. Before I start that, I would like to speak a little bit about the journey of Rosnet Singapore GS1, why this organization has been in place and why these consortiums are so important. Because it's important that the government, the industry and the education institutions come together always to solve the industry problems and challenges which we constantly go through, right? And each of the party looks for or someone else, like the government looks for the industry looks for government, and all of us look for talent in education institutions. And that's why I think this kind of consortiums come to play. And we've been here for about 20 years solving industry problems, creating B2B standards, more than $1 trillion of dollars of revenue is being generated using the standards as we speak, and the likes of barcode, RFID, all has come from this organization. Now, what we're trying to do is we are trying to partner with the organizations like Global CIO Forum, which has got a huge network. And we have MOUs with Global CIO Forum and Edifes in Europe, for example, and GS1 in US. How do we leverage the network to go from a region or a country to a cross-border region or a global kind of a standards organization, right? So that's why I think the partnership between Global CIO Forum and Rosnet Singapore plays a key part. And we have done some interesting projects like research through pandemic, and which are going to leverage and come out with a lot of outcomes, which I'll share in a minute. Likewise, on the standard side, we are still working with the governments on some digital standards like blockchain with the Singapore government, like for trade. Trust is the industry project we are working towards, where the blockchains can be internationally recognized as the innovations happen in silos within their own organizations, to name a few, right? We partner with organizations like Global CIO Forum to have the roundtables, events where we can focus on standards and we can leverage on the network and the media coverage and the outreach to C-suite between the organizations, these two organizations, right? And we also partner with the education institutions, where we kind of have the talent and the upcoming talent and to address the talent gaps of certifications maybe, or some pilot programs run with a kind of center of excellence to be set up as a pilot project and give it back to the industry. So a lot of those things happened in the last 20 years, and we are moving towards edge in Industry 4.0 technology as we speak. And I'm excited to share with you a major and a good project which we started last year again in collaboration with Global CIO Forum, to say how do we capture the moment in time for pandemic where it is a new normal, where the whole industry and the global forum has been a reset, rethink, and a restart for all of us, right? So we wanted to capture what happens to the business side of things, what happens to your partners, what happens to the new normal, which we are going to move about. That we had a 360 degrees approach, and a lot of good findings have come out from this research, which I'm going to leverage to speak about how the regional business and digital trends looks like, right? And let's see some of those study outcomes. The participation from the industries has been across. We again took a 360 approach here, starting from high tech and manufacturing, SMEs, energy sectors, financial services. You can see the sweep. It was overwhelming, and we had about 450 to 500 participants from this survey, which we have captured the data. And we like to see how it looks like in various sectors of the outcomes, right? So let me share a little bit of the different aspects of the research, right? So we went about asking how this pandemic is turning about, right? And do you see the investments in technology happening just for a spur for the pandemic situation, or it's going to stop after that, right? The response was overwhelming, saying that the organizations doesn't see technology as a backbencher or a back office. They're seeing them in the front line. Same goes for HR, for that matter, right? It's no longer a support function, and they're in the front lines, right? So investments are continuing to happen, and I'm seeing this, the research data, and when you go to the real industries forums, and when you talk to people or the C-suites, we're seeing this in every organization. I'm sure all of you must be going through this, that investments are increasing in technology space, and this is going to continue, right? We further went on the major disruptors. We can always speak about very generic things like reset, rethink, and restart, but what are the key areas which really it got hit through this pandemic? When we did a deep dive, we all knew that pandemic has created a very different situation for all of us, especially not everybody has kind of hit the bottom and come up like a V shape or a U shape, you can call it. It's like a K shape kind of recovery. We're all seeing that, but we are all global companies as you speak. We are not doing business in one place or one region, and that's why the regional trends in business become very important. And each one is coming up in its own pace. How the government is reacting on the vaccine policies, for that matter. How is the variants of the pandemic turning about, right, and all that. So that's impacting, when you see that's impacting the real supply chain. The demand forecast being the key on top. If you see, that's the major thing, because people don't know how to plan. They cannot go in a weekly way. They can't go in a daily basis. And how to go about getting your capacity, right, with your suppliers, with the contractors. How do you make sure your partners are ready for the change, and how do you make the change happen and execute to really run your business to be profitable, or at least sustain, for that matter, right? And that's been a huge challenge. And beyond technology, the trust you build with your suppliers and the partners are key here, because these are the moments where I think everybody has got a level play, and you need to build a trust to say that in the good times and the bad times we are with you. And it could not only be in manufacturing, it could be financing, it could be credit. How you go about helping the ecosystem, right? That also I'm seeing as a trend there. And there's a huge shortage in inventories. We all hear about the semiconductor chip industry shortages, and people have stopped manufacturing, and new plants are being held up, and new acquisitions, M&A news we are hearing globally. All these are the trends and effect on top of the pandemic we are seeing, and each organization is struggling. And we from Rosternet Singapore and Global CIO Forum are seeing how do we bring people together to address some of these challenges in sharing best practice, maybe, or creating some industry programs to see how the awareness come about, so that one party can learn from other, right? We also went about saying that who are the industry leaders, and we talk about edge, and that's one side is pandemic. We spoke enough about pandemic, right? And second is to how do you survive in business and increase your margins or your product offering. So most of the companies are moving towards from a normal manufacturing to a service-based model. Not only I'm talking about the cloud or maybe the SaaS kind of companies, but actually the core companies who are doing their products. For example, for bank, if you're in the financial industry, you will like to move into fintech solutions. If you're in the manufacturing, you would like to see how do you co-partner with your innovators and your ecosystem, and see you start with the services along your ecosystem, right? For example, in energy industry, I'm seeing a lot where you go beyond normal manufacturing of EVs to a energy market, where you go for a green kind of exchange of energy to be a corporate citizen, to be carbon neutral, for example. So there are some good learnings on technology from maybe from automobile industry or medical, for manufacturing and high tech, right, healthcare and even high tech, where it can leverage the technology and use them in a different use cases. That again, from GS1 Rosneft Singapore and Global CIO Forum, we're looking at opportunities where do we create outcomes programs where we can help one industry learn from the other industry and help them facilitate with some programs and outcomes, right? So this again a good research outcome and how I'm seeing the trends in the region. Moving from the trends of investment, right? Where is the money being spent? If you see, it's kind of resonating exactly in which how the companies want to start after the reset or a restart, I would say, right? A huge emphasis on cybersecurity. If you hear the news yesterday, Biden wants to head the in US want to head the security forum, which unusual of a US president trying to head a security forum, right? So that shows that how important cybersecurity has become. People are investing on cloud and cloud computing per se because they're not sure about the demand situation, like we spoke in the earlier findings of the research, where you can ramp up and ramp down, and cloud gives a very good level play for these kind of models. AI and machine learning is playing a major part, even including data science, which is the next item, where you want to model different scenarios for you to react, because you just can't invest and say, oh, okay, I started off on this some impact on one of the countries where the supply chain is disrupted, right? I mean, that's happening more and more this year. So people want to model and see how my investments is going to look like with the erratic recovery across globally, right? It could be a container situation, it could be a shipping situation, it could be a logistics situation. So they want to see the model before they invest. So that's why I think these two investments are coming about: the big data, and then the data services, data science is coming about. Blockchain is playing a major part in services, especially services part. When I mentioned about the financial services, the distributed ledger, when you go for green financing or supply chain financing. So people want to make sure the data is secured, encrypted. At the same time, you are able to govern it. And that's where the governments are coming into play. The IMD's trade trust program, where you have a common standards where you can have a registry to check if your document is authentic before you start paying to the parties, right? Things can move fast, but someone from a government need to help you to facilitate that cross-border standards are working. That again, we are working together with CIO Forum and Rosneft Singapore to drive certain programs here. RPA, productivity increase, repetitive program. We don't need so many people, but they can do something else value added. It's playing a huge role there. And B2B and moving to edge from a B2B to B2B2C in service model. I see there's a lot of trends happening. You can see marketplaces, co-collaboration, and how different industry. It's not just the e-commerce side, but it's moving towards the energy sector and the solar industry itself. When you can have a climate change kind of marketplace, for example, standards for how United Nations is trying to drive the industry, right? So all that is happening as we speak. Then moving on to the talent side of things, we see a huge gap because the way the industry has changed and transformed. Neither the industry was ready, nor the talent part was ready, nor the universities were ready, and there's a lot of gap in between supply and demand of talent. And we again are working closer with the industry to see how do we create programs right from influencing a curriculum, creating internship, maybe center of excellence kind of solutions where we can help steer that as a standard, and also at the same time build the talent from the ground up, so that in the future we will be able to narrow that gap. So that again, we're working very closely on that. And how to go about doing it. And we see more and more of agile being used, not only in the digital transformation, we're also seeing that in the back office functions, very interestingly, because the trend is we don't want to invest and wait for a long time, take it into smaller use cases, MVPs, and see the results as it goes. Not just on the front end side of things, but also in the back office. That's what the research outcome has stated here from a customer journeys perspective, and even in the operations in the back office. And what are the challenges which today the industry is facing? It comes back on why you need a consortium like us to solve the problems. You need to have government regulations. You need to have the telco providers be ready, like the 5G coming and kind of accelerating the whole of edge technologies, right? Do you have the system integrators in place? Because everything cannot be done by one organization. So you look at big organizations, even they're acquiring like in a SPAC model to a smaller startups or fintechs. That again, I think we are leveraging between Rosneft Singapore and Global CIO Forums network to see how do we do a mix and match of solutions where I think you can co-innovate, co-collaborate, and we can facilitate that, right? So some of these are the challenges, and how we are trying to see we can address those challenges is what we are working towards. And the beneficiaries are going to be everybody, individual leaders, industries, startups and ISVs, like I mentioned, for co-innovation, co-partnership, government agencies, and the education institutions. All put together are in our equation. We didn't miss anybody, and we look forward to work with each one of you in building that program and with your participation. And some of the government and the quasi-government organizations who have stepped forward to be a part of it, you have the logos there, and some programs are active, and we call for more international government and consortiums to join us to help drive this initiative. We cannot do it alone, right? And a good partnership with the Global CIO Forum and GS1, which is the US for us. I mentioned in some part of it how to go about solving the problems. You may be multi-part. We need to have roundtables to gather the top ideas, top challenges, where we pick the top priorities by region, by country, by leaders, how to go about doing it. We've been doing that on top of the research to see where the traction is that's happening in Pella. As we speak, some white paper is going to be soon released to say where we see things, how the outcomes are going to be, and where the opportunities out there for you to come and participate, accelerate the whole thing. Webinars like this, events and awareness for you to steer the interest and the motivation to join us, and also the talent gaps, like I mentioned. So all these are in paper, and I would strongly encourage the audience to join us or maybe be part of it in the volunteerism to make a difference. And I'm very excited to be part of this role, and we look forward for a lot of outcomes to be driven out of the research between ROSNET Singapore and Global CIO. And that's the end of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manoj, for that deep dive into regional trends in transformation. Very interesting, and definitely a number of key takeaways over there. I would now like to call Malvika Shankar once again, President of GEC Media Group, to moderate and launch the panel discussion on organizational transformation, leveraging sustainability and leadership, and introduce our panelists as well. Over to you, Malvika, to take over this first panel discussion of the BTX Road Show 2021 Asia edition.
Thank you, Arun, and welcome to this panel to discuss the organizational leadership towards sustainability. It's a pleasure and delight to have my friends Vinay Avasthi, worldwide head of print supply chain at HP, Millie Gillon, global head client experience, Standard Chartered Bank, and Manoj Saxena, chairman, Rosetta Net, Singapore, GS1 Digital Standards and Advisory Board, Global CIO Forum. He's also the Senior Director for Data and Digital Transformation at Maxian Solar Technologies. So welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here and discuss. And when we talk about sustainability and leadership, we have less than a decade to meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030. To make this world a more sustainable place, and now since we, all of us are here in Singapore, a quick flash is that Singapore has embarked on making one of the world's largest floating solar panel farms, spanning an area equivalent to 45 football fields, and producing enough electricity to power the island's 5 water treatment plants, which is something like a 60 megawatt peak solar photovoltaic farm. This is the future. So it's very interesting. The sustainability needs to be at the core of business practices, and this requires strong commitment from every company leadership. Sustainable leadership plays a vibrant part in the organization of organizational learning and business transformation. So, Millie, my first question to you is that, we have seen that leaders define their vision and they get their people to follow their goals. Do you see this leadership paradigm changing? How do you define sustainable leadership?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure for me to join you. So what we have seen is over the last few years, there's always been a little interest here, a little interest there in sustainability. Yes, we hear the general population, but talking and hearing are very different from taking action. And this year has been very different at Standard Chartered in the sense that we have created sustainability as one of our 3 bold stands to really help and impact in a positive way the communities that we have a footprint in. So from a leadership perspective, it's going from top down and bottoms up. So hopefully we can meet somewhere in the middle and make a change. And it's really shifting from, it's no longer just some side project. It's more of a cultural shift having dedicated people, having dedicated resources. And of course, that is extremely difficult, especially with still trying to maintain and run our business and continuing to pivot and move ahead in our core business. But what I'm seeing this year is a major shift and a major dedication to that, in the sense that now in each of our businesses, we have a chief sustainability officer, as well as we're also figuring out different ways from the institutional side and from the consumer side, how can we incorporate that into our investable assets? But there is one issue that still exists, and I'm happy to go more into detail into that later on in this discussion. And that's really around awareness and external communications that we're really trying to address.
Yes, awareness and communication is of paramount importance. So, Vinay, over to you. Wanting to know from you that business leaders must rise to the challenge of making business sustainability a workable strategy. And what are some of the challenges that leaders are facing as they work towards bringing business transformation for sustainable goals? What do you think?
I mean, I think there is a lot that can be first and foremost done in this space. And thank you for having me over to kind of like have this conversation. There are challenges for everybody. I think, if we look at business leaders, if we look at government leaders, if we look at our own lives as consumers and individuals, right? Everybody can always point towards challenges that you have. They could be related to costs. They could be related to business processes that you need to change. There could be related to just habits that we have, right? I mean, as individuals have habits, you don't want to take a reusable bag, or you are lazy and you take a plastic bag or many plastic bags from the markets. There are business habits like that, right? I think we have many of the things that have been done from product design or logistics or the way we operate our factories, which have been earlier not designed for dealing with sustainability or really having this as a top priority, right? So there are challenges can be a lot, but I think most important thing is what are we doing about it? How intentional are we as we work on our sustainable goals? How methodical we are? Do we have a framework with which we can operate? Supply chain, as you see, right, is a chain. It is not just your internal organization, but your suppliers, your sub-suppliers, the entire logistics chain. How do they operate, and can you lead them, right, together? Not just your own organization, but through your organization, taking a very firm stand on what we want to drive towards supply chain, absolute carbon footprint, the framework that we want to drive. You want to lead the entire supply chain of your business partners, of your suppliers, your sub-suppliers, the entire ecosystem, right? So that's where we are, and I'm looking forward to having more conversation about how HP is thinking of driving sustainable impact in its supply chain.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, like intention, framework, and driving the entire supply chain. So, Manoj, over to you. How organizations are transforming from corporate social responsibility towards key performance indicator driven for sustainability, and why now?
Yeah, hi Malvika. Glad that you asked that question, and why now is the key part, right? I mean, you're right. I mean, everybody had this as a CSR to start with. If you're looking 1 decade back, I mean, every time you have a financial report reported, the CSR will be the last sheet of a financial report of any organization. But not anymore. If you see the current situation of the floods happening in China, in Japan, in India, glaciers melting, right? People used to think it's more of a modeling of science just to kind of bring the urgency, but they're able to see the impact right now, the way the Mother Nature is behaving, but not acting in time, right? So it's for us, this generation, to make sure that we act now so that we have a sustainable environment or earth left for the next generations to come, right? So a couple of things happening. It's, why now is very interesting. One is the nature itself is alarming. A lot of governments are coming together, the way I see it, right, from Europe, from US, and from Asia, Singapore government, especially the way you started off this call. They're having goals for next 10 years, next 20 years, moving from a normal energy to a renewable energy, from an EV space and all that, right? There's targeted approach there. And not only that, I'm very heartened to see that the new generation are very, very concerned about the climate change. Even the things they buy, the kind of materials they buy, you know, how it's being manufactured, and where it's being used by animal testing and all that stuff, right? So the awareness is kind of growing in, all 360-degree force. And I'm very happy that I've joined a sustainable renewable energy firm, Maxion, as Senior Director for Data and Digital, where we are trying to power the positive change with an impact of how a renewable solar energy can kind of save the world or leave the world for a better place to live in, right? So I'm very excited to be part of this journey and see how we can influence and have this leadership going.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move and see what's happening currently in sustainability in organizations, and here at Singapore, the Monetary Authority of Singapore is working on a comprehensive and a long-term strategy to make sustainable finance a defining feature of Singapore's role as an international financial center, just as wealth management and fintech have become. So, Millie, my question to you would be that talk to us about sustainable initiatives currently in Standard Chartered Bank, and what are the key focus areas in your products and services?
Sure. So it's a few different pieces, both internally as well as externally. Internally, we're constantly trying to pivot towards and accelerate moving towards net zero in the ways that we work internally, but then also in the ways that we invest. So externally, from the client perspective, really trying to ensure that we're selecting the right investable assets that will promote sustainability, but then also trying to ensure that we have the right level of awareness to our customers so that they have that trust, not just with us, but they also have that trust in these specific investments. And then from the institutional side, it's really trying to find that right balance between what is right and what is profitable. And over time, those will converge. It's just trying to figure out what is the right mix, testing and learning.
I see. So, so talk to us about Millie. There's certain how is Standard Chartered Bank, driving sustainability through its people as well?
So, in terms of the way that we interact with each other in the office, when we go back to the office, the way that our makeup is, it is starting to really shift really quickly. For example, in some of our India branches, what we've done is completely take away everything that relates to paper for 1 week. Just a hard, cold turkey move and pivot, and seeing, well, what are the pain points and how can we address that? How can we fix that so that we can make that sustainable? So we can move much faster towards net zero.
Yeah, that's fantastic. In fact, listening into the executives and then figuring out what is the best that is possible, I think that is really key. Thank you for that. And let's go to Vinay. Vinay, at HP, how do you see the journey towards creating products and solutions that are driving towards a circular and net zero carbon economy? I know that HP is doing a whole lot of stuff in that area. So we would love to hear more on that.
So look, I mean, our vision, Malvika, is that we want to create the world's most sustainable supply chain, okay? And you start off with having a very ambitious goal. So HP's ambitious goal is that we want to reduce the absolute carbon footprint by 50% by 2030, okay? So we want to be very ambitious and we want to be beating those goals. Now, when you drive towards an ambitious goal, you also want to make sure that it is pretty comprehensive in how you drive that, right? So we have a framework, which is, we define it as people, planet, and community, okay? So we drive across these three areas. So let me come to the planet part, because your question was more about that. The idea behind this planet pillar is how do you reduce GHG emissions, right? Greenhouse generating emissions. How do you reduce that? So the framework is pretty simple, right? On the planet side, that you reduce, you reuse, and you recycle materials. But in order to drive that, you have to really start looking at, again, subsections of that. So circular economy. How do you drive suppliers and sourcing innovation for sustainable recycled materials, right? It is economic packaging. It is about closed loop in the factory. It is about paper, water, all those kind of things, right? Then you also work towards reducing waste and transition to sustainable material in factories and also in your distribution. So single-use plastics was something that I was mentioning, right? Packaging, making sure that they are, the right certifications are in place to drive that. We also want to increase our capabilities to drive more services, right? I mean, if people are not using materials as a use and throw, but using products towards saying, okay, when I'm done, there is another life that can be found for that, right? And that's more of a long-term thing. So we work a lot on working on our services in such a way that people can return their ink and toner cartridges. We can recycle those, etc. Right? And then you look at also the production and logistics aspect to it. How do you have what shipping options do you have? How do you design a network that is far more efficient? How do you redesign your distribution centers to be using more green grid, for example, right? How do you identify and enable a resilient supply chain across the network to mitigate these climate risks that we have, right? So these are some of the thoughts regarding how we are looking at establishing a really robust framework for driving planet pillar for us to reduce the GHG emissions.
Oh, fantastic. It's great to know, what all is happening there. Tell me how difficult it is to manage stakeholders, when you have this kind of supply chains, management that is to be done. How do you see yourself moving in finding solutions so that, everybody's, ideas are brought into the same platform?
Yeah. Look, I think nothing can be done without having people on board with what we are trying to drive, right? So this is internal management. This is the individual contributors. You really have to empower the employees to contribute and raise awareness. If you look at any corporate structure, right, you will find everybody is concerned about costs. People are concerned about turnaround times. People are concerned around what's the strategy to be better and more competitive. How do you design products to be more competitive from a feature set point of view, right? We need to have similar discipline on sustainability, right? Is everybody getting involved in being on board to drive sustainability, right? Does every action that we take as a team or as a larger supply chain, how do we do that so that sustainability is first and foremost in our minds, right? So this is something which is very critical, and you have to lead. I think there is no other way. If we don't lead, nobody else will take that leadership. That is what our belief is within HP, right? So we are going to take a very ambitious. We are already starting to come out and declare these things, so that when you declare your goals out there in the public as well, people can monitor people, and then you remain honest to those, right? So this is also very critical. And one other thing, right? This is not a choice. I think this is something that we completely realize. This is not a choice. You have to do it. And there will also be positive benefits for businesses when you do it. A lot of customers right now are very, very involved and concerned about what's happening to the planet. So they demand more sustainable products. They demand not just products that look and feels more sustainable, but also how they are made. So in the future, people will ask, where did you make them? How did you make them? What were the kind of energy sources you used? Did you have circular, loop in your material processing in the factories? All those things will be super important. So unless we take that leadership position, our entire supply chain won't be sustainable, right? So that's contrary to what our vision is, and that's why we want to drive this from a position of leadership, and then make sure that everybody comes along.
Yeah, position of leadership, and get everybody with the common values and beliefs. I think that's a great point over there. Yeah, thank you for that, Vinay. It is also interesting to note that Singapore aims to phase out internal combustion engine vehicles and have all vehicles run on cleaner energy by 2040. And it's a very interesting fact here. And especially I want to put this question to Manoj, who's part of the Maxion Solar Technologies. Manoj, with your experience also in digital standards, and what are the key focus areas on sustainable leadership and circular economy within Maxion Solar Technologies?
Yeah. For us, we are a little glad, Malvika, to be in the industry where we kind of promote clean energy, right? All the footprints, the products we sell, not only within Maxion, any consumer who buys our product is going to be in the journey, right? By being a user of a clean energy kind of stuff, right? So focusing on the clean kind of a United Nations goals, we are having at least 4 goals, which we have narrowed down to see how do we make this clean energy more affordable. the more than 700 million people in the world who cannot have affordable clean energy, right? So that's being our goal in our product and innovation roadmap, to say that it's not only the solar panels, and how do you make it affordable for being it more inclusive at every part of the world. So that's one of the key strategies which as a company we have, and we take a lot of pride in that. And also be responsible for what we consume and produce within our own factories, right? So like Vinay mentioned, and like Billy mentioned, how do we make sure that we be an example of a more natural energy usage, and maybe not only energy, how do you have less water wastage, or how do you have a waste disposal process in place so that it's not contaminating the earth back, right? So we have very careful on that. And above and beyond, we try and use our products and services in terms of reducing inequalities, especially in some refugee camps of the world, and wherever it's needed more. I think we take our CSR responsibility to install our panels and have clean waters, and also add into that goal, right? More promoting towards peace, justice, and stronger institutional values there in the sense. Internally, we also promote everybody to be an ambassador, to follow like how you switch on light or switch off lights, or even for a simple example, like when I had my first team lunch, we all decided to go for a plant-based burger, for example, right? So it's more of a practice you lay upon from a corporate standpoint to the individual, and proud to be in the sweet spot, and see how we can drive this leadership in all angles to be making the energy more affordable for more and more industry and the global countries to use it and benefit from it, right?
Yeah. Yes, I mean leadership, thought leadership, and wanting to get the message across on circular economy and what all you can do here. That's interesting. Talk to us, Manoj, around any digital standards that you think are key here in terms of any kind of indicators that really highlight this kind of circular economy, and that will help the leaders to kind of say, yes, this is one of the focus areas to kind of look into, so that business transformation can be brought out, and certain particular key indicators would be very important. What do you think would be those?
Yeah, technology always has been a critical part for any transformation, right? I mean, standards are very close to my heart, being in GS1 for decades, and I'm seeing that moving towards an edge. Taking a theme of sustainability per se, right? For example, if you have all smart solutions of smart homes, or how do you make sure your aircon is kind of used based on, let's say the temperature is high and low, you don't have to use a remote, for example, right? Automatically, how you have sensors or IoT solutions coming into play that it kind of self-manages that, for example. Having your temperature and climate, which kind of influences your home. That's some of the examples you can say, right? And basically, the Industry 4.0 technologies like IoT plays a major part in these kind of climate changes, the way I see it. In terms of finance and I mean the MA's green finance thing, which you just highlighted earlier on, and some of the track and trace becomes very important. Vinay highlighted like how you make sure your suppliers do the suppliers also following the sustainable standards and all that, right? The track and trace for the end-to-end visibility becomes very key, and that's where standards like blockchain for track and trace for from where it starts and where the product ends, all the way going to bank, like people like Millie and Standard Chartered, they get the visibility of that standards, right? So that's where I think you like to get the ball rolling more from a theory and a paper-based documents to more digitalization and standards coming on. So we're working with Singapore government and a few other standards body to see how do we make this blockchain as a standard for green and invoice financing as one of the active projects which is running along. And also you'll see more and more people taking responsibility to buy the clean energy, right? So you probably see like an Amazon effect or a Lazada effect of a marketplace. People are more used to that term. That's why I'm using the term of an energy marketplace. This is how I'm seeing where technology again will come into play, where you can, you don't have to be a producer of energy. If you want to have a CSR goal set up and you want to buy clean energy to meet your goals, I think that's where the buy and sell of energy will start coming in. And you also talked about the EVs and the renewable energy space, those kind of things for batteries and all that. How do you reuse them? For example, that's going to be a huge industry. In Singapore is going on EV space. There's a lot of batteries will be having end of life. How do you kind of recycle them and bring it back into the active life, right? So a lot of those things in the ecosystem will start evolving, and technology is going to be the centerpiece to drive and collaborate and bring people together to accelerate this journey. That's how I see it.
Okay, technology being the center of it all. Sustainable finance is the practice of integrating, environmental, social governance criteria into financial services to bring about sustainable development outcomes, including mitigating and adapting to the adverse effects of climate change. So, Millie, what do what do you think? What are your insights for the role of financial industry as drivers of sustainable transformation in the future? We would love to hear your insights on that.
So a few things. One is to really identify where are we investing our money? What is the impact to the overall climate change, as well as the Earth, the planet? But then also, how can we continue to promote those new and smaller instances where we can make that impact? The other piece is from a more strategic perspective. What we do is we look at trends, our future trends. And right now, or this year, a lot of the future trends are all related to sustainability, whether it is planted, focusing on plant-based products, or it is around other types of areas. But I'll just take planted as an example. What does that have to do with financial services? Well, one is that we can start to incorporate that into our end-to-end journeys. And that could be either incentivizing specific types of providers that are focused on plant-based services or products and solutions. And then two is really trying to look at these different types of smaller organizations that are starting up and trying to help and mentor them, guide them, and then also invest with them.
Okay. Yeah.
Just one more comment on what Manoj just mentioned in terms of the ecosystem. I think that is so amazing and so super important, especially now that we have connected devices. And it's not just in the energy space that has a huge impact. It also has to do with all of the other more established industries, such as financial services, as well as the other industries out there. But how we could all collaborate together, even though if you think about it on the surface, energy and financial services, aside from trading, what does that have to do with each other? Tons. Yeah. So what we could possibly do is have integrated ecosystems together and support each other's value proposition that helps to promote the wellness of our planet.
Mm-hmm. So the ecosystem is the key for the future. So thank you for that. Vinay, let's go to you. Share with us any trends that you're seeing in your industry at large that you are hearing in sustainability and business transformation as a result of this driver.
I think the biggest trend that I see is that now senior leaders are driving sustainability as a very, very important aspect of the company's charter, right? I think that's the biggest transformation that I'm seeing this. From profit making to customer support and service, servicing customers with the best suite of products and services and solutions. Now it is becoming a lot more than that, right? They want to do something for the planet, for the community, and for the employees as well, right? So this is something which is the single biggest trend. Now, what this will lead to is it will lead to really drive, having a lot of transformation come in. For example, right, sustainability is going to get more and more integrated in the decision-making process. Whenever you are deciding to make a factory move or onboarding a new supplier or awarding a business to, one, partner, right? Sustainable decision-making will start coming in. And I think that's the biggest trend, which is what ultimately will get sustainability into all important considerations, and metrics will also evolve from that, right? I mean, on one hand, you can have things like how do you include recycled plastics into your products, right? How do you increase that percentage from 5, 10, 30 to more than 50% recycled plastic? And how do you go make a choice regarding the kind of energy usage that you will have in your factories? Is it going to come from a green grid? How are you going to drive, in terms of trends, sustainability as a marketing engine? So for example, Malvika, if I come to you and saying, one printer or one computer, you have everything else it being equal in terms of its specifications, the way you know it for a computer to operate. But one computer has a passport that tells you how it was transported, what kind of energy it used, what kind of recycled material it used, how much water it wasted or saved, versus the other that is a black box to you and doesn't tell you. What choice will you make? you will probably make a choice towards a more sustainable product, right? That's the trend that we have a vision for, and we really believe that it is bound to happen. It has happened in the food industry, right? I mean, everywhere we pay a little bit of a premium for an organic product, food product, because we don't want to put something that is inorganic or contains stuff that we don't want to put in our bodies. By having products that we use that will have that kind of a specification will also help us care for what we are doing to our planet. And that's how I think the choices will have to go. That's the long-term trend that we need to all drive towards.
Thank you for that, Vinay. I mean, that's really interesting, and it encompasses the overall, vision for where we are moving with sustainability. Let's go to Manoj. Manoj, as you rightly said about technology, and technology will be crucial in smarter, ESG reporting, ratings, and investments. So I'm very curious to know, how do you see the leaders should have these technology discussions to accelerate the sustainability for their organizations? Because tremendous is going to happen. Technology is going to sweep it out to bring about this kind of change within the organization. How do you see, and what do you think the leaders should be working out on the technology?
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly said, there's a lot of motivation for organization and the leaders to do something, right? So typically, when you look at situations where there's transformation or a change or a shift of paradigm happening, right? I am a great fan of three parties need to come in, right? Government, industry, and education institutions. I'm quite a great fan of that triangular equation. It's very important there, right? And if you take a simple example of the climate exchange platform, which Standard Chartered has come out with public information, DBS, and even Temasek, for example. There are banks and government investors coming together. What they're doing is they're just trying to bring a platform for the leaders and the industries to come together to understand what is the framework, what are the standards, how do you measure, right? Because when something new comes up, people are very enthusiastic about the thing, but they don't know how to go about doing things, right? You need to have a framework, you need to have a guidelines to say, and then that has to be recognized internationally, because most of us have an international organization, over 100 countries, over 160 countries, right? So how do you make that happen cross borders, right? So that's, I think, is more from a silos to cross borders. That's why I wear a little hat of the other hat of standards consortium, which has been for a decade, and probably I'll see as far as I can go and help out in that arena. That's why I think leaders are kind of struggling to say which standard to follow, right? And where do I collaborate, and with whom do I collaborate, right? That's why this consortium come and play a major part, where it's neutral and not lopsided to a product or a company, right? I mean, to solve the problem together with the government and the education institution and the industry. And this is a good example of climate exchange, which Standard Chartered, DBS, and Temasek has come out as a good example of that. MAC is trying to do that. So each of them would need the other half. So leaders of all the three segments need to come together to create the greater impact for greater good and powering a positive change, like we say in Maxion. That's how I say it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think it's again get back into the ecosystem and how each of the stakeholders can come together and do much more. So we are closing on time, and thank you so much for your time today. I think great insights, but we can't let you go before doing a rapid fire. Okay, so there's one rapid fire that will happen, one round. So if you're up for it, let's go. So Vinay, any particular book that is fueling your thoughts in leadership and sustainability?
Not so much books these days. I read a lot of articles about that. Books are very interesting, but sometimes they get frozen in time. Right now I'm reading a book about Homo Deus, okay, the human god. If you think of that, right? It talks a lot about human history and how the next few years will be on future, and very transformative. But other than that, I think on sustainability, I'm relying more and more on articles from New York Times and Washington Post and all that. So yeah.
Okay, good. Millie, what is that one particular thing that you would want to say today that will help in increasing awareness for sustainability?
That it is something that a lot of financial institutions, whether it is Standard Chartered or our direct competitors or our partners such as MasterCard or Visa, what we are doing is we're vetting out these different types of investment vehicles. It's okay to trust it. It's okay to not just sit on the sidelines and see what happens. And at the same time, That convergence that I mentioned earlier of doing what's right for our planet and profitability, it's coming. It's coming as soon as tomorrow. So it's best to just jump on that bandwagon and help and contribute in your own way.
Okay. Manoj, what is that one area of technology that would help us in getting to our sustainable goals that you would like to highlight?
I would say the Industry 4.0 revolution. So that's the one which is taking to the edge, and all smart solutions around it would be an area to watch out for, where a lot of collaborative solutions will come into. Just watch out for Industry 4.0 solutions. That's from my side.
All right, wonderful. So thank you once again for your great insights and valuable sharing across industries. And this is a great takeaway for our audiences to benefit from this session. I would like to thank once again Vinay Avasthi, Worldwide Head of Print Supply Chain HP, Millie Gillon, Global Head for Customer Experience, Senior Managing Director, Standard Chartered Bank, Manoj Saxena, Advisory Global CIO Forum, Chairman Rosetta Net Singapore GS1 Digital Standards, Senior Director Data and Digital Transformation, Maxine Solar Technologies. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Malvika.
Bye.
Thank you, Malvika, and the panelists as well, on that rich discussion on how technology can be used to automate sustainability in business and supply chains. Definitely some very interesting points raised by Manoj and the panelists, as well as Malvika's moderation. For the next keynote, I would now like to call Nicole Tretver, Head of Logistics Services, APAC at Swarovski, to speak on transforming the supply chain. Over to you, Nicole Tretver.
All right. Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to BTX 2021 Asia Edition. Today, I want to talk with you about the ever hot topic of business transformation. Because especially in retail, you cannot afford to stand still. You need to keep moving and changing to capture the attention of the consumer. And it's quite a competition out there. Now, we know that statistics from McKinsey show that around 70% of business transformations fail. And the reasons for them are quite many, and you cannot really pinpoint it to a certain group. So I actually, for this talk today, I have picked this background picture because you see, this is what a business transformation is all about, right? It's all about maintaining all those different pieces of your business moving at the same time, keeping that perfect balance so you don't tilt over to the one side or the other. Today, I want to share with you the transformation my current company is undergoing. And just a disclaimer here that all the information presented here is publicly available and is only representing my very own opinion. Sharing the transformation we have gone through, and also some of the learnings, not only from this transformation, but from previous transformations that I think are very, very important to have a successful transformation. So who am I? I'm Nicole Tretver. I'm based here in Singapore, and I'm currently in charge for logistics in Asia Pacific for a very large jewelry manufacturer and retailer. I bring with me 18 years of experience in supply chain across 4 continents, that's 7 countries so far, traveled many more, and all the way from Costa Rica to Northeast China. And I speak 3 languages fluently, and I'm still hoping that at one point I can, at least some basic Mandarin can be added to that list. So let's talk about transformation, business transformation, because it's a big topic. And the question is always, what are you trying to transform? What parts of your business do need transformation? And how should you go about this, right? So in the current case, in my current company, we've had a transformation going on, and it's been quite accelerated, as you can imagine, some parts of it thanks to COVID. And some of them have been planned, and some of them we just had to implement rather swiftly. So if you are familiar with the brand, I'm sure you are aware about our current transformation. It's one of the largest transformations in our 125-year-old history. So we have been revamping our jewelry to a new composition of statement pieces, and at the same time, playful. At the same time, craftsmanship, at the same time, even more quality into it. And what we want to do with this is we want to broaden our positioning in the market, because we want our consumer to be able to express themselves in the most varied way possible. We have reshaped our designs and the product portfolio, because we're moving into an attainable luxury segment. So now we're manufacturing all our crystals by yourself. We've always done that, right? So we had quite a steep learning curve, because we have bigger, bolder cuts. We have different size and shapes, and we've had to adapt our manufacturing to cater to this different range. We've also have started transforming our stores, and I think this is also a very visible part of our new positioning. We've stepped away from the store as a dedicated point of sales into providing a more consumer-focused retail experience. We're offering brand immersion. We are enabling the consumer to interact with our brand and with our history and with our designs in the store. And then we're trying to shift that into the attainable luxury segment. So you've seen we're having a very strong push into repositioning our brand into the segment. Now, hand in hand with this, we are developing our omni-channel capabilities. Now, omni-channel and capabilities are a very, very broad subject, and you may have listened to one or other of my talks on the subject, because it's very broad, right? So in our case, we are now focusing on giving the consumer the options on where they wish their items to be delivered to, right? Whether it be an in-store order and a to-store order. We are engaging with the consumer across the different social media platforms in a much more direct way. And we give them the opportunity to engage with our products, and at the same time also purchase our products through many, many different channels. And in order to support all of this, we've had, of course, to develop further our supply chain network. So we are redesigning our supply network, our distribution network, and that's already been underway for a couple of years. And COVID has taught us that, yes, that's the right way, and we need to do it faster, right? So as in any business transformation, sometimes some parts of that transformation are accelerated through external factors. And this is something just that your team will need to deal with. So it's not only that our network has to be redesigned, but we're also looking at our end-to-end capabilities, right? Integrated planning, and that's been at the forefront of our transformation. So it's really essential for this end-to-end planning, because at the end of the day, you need to deliver your product to the consumer, right? So this end-to-end planning with balancing the inventory and the lead times into the different markets, we've decided to go ahead with a regional distribution setup, catering to the different markets and specific markets, even with the forward stock locations. So we've automated and we've driven investments in this area with end-to-end planning being provided by IVCP as an example. So let's look at some of the key learnings and observations that I have gathered now over the last few years' experience that I would like to share with you today. First of all, the area of focus. It is very tempting when you start preparing and formulating your vision and your business transformation to pull out any possible initiatives at different levels that you think are necessary to successfully achieve that business transformation. And I think that's quite risky, because you have limited resources. And as a human, you can only focus on so many topics at the same time. So having a business transformation plan with a structured goal with no more than 3 to 5 initiatives simultaneously will, of course, stretch your workforce, and it will take away the focus. Take as an example, YouTube. So when they were developing and starting to drive the business growth, they had one single goal, one single measurement of success. And no, it was not EBIT. It was watch time hours. So once they agreed on this one single goal, it was agreed and communicated, and the entire team from top to bottom was focusing on this one question. How do we get people to watch more content? How do we get people to spend more hours on YouTube? You can see how whatever you're doing, you ask yourself that single goal question, it makes just your decisions so much easier. So this is an example, of course, about scaling and not about business transformation, but the same principle applies here. It's really important that when you decide to go ahead with your new vision, that you handpick those 3 to 5 initiatives that you start off with. And then you have this laser focus on these initiatives. And from there, you drive this message into the company so that people can actually focus on those. You have this laser focus on these initiatives. And from there, you drive this message into the company so that people can focus on those topics. So you reduce the chances that your message gets muzzled and misunderstood. It's because when you come in and when you develop your vision, and then you have this wish list of, I don't know, 20 to 25 items that you need to implement in order to deliver that mission, you will not be able to deploy these changes at the same time. So take your time, select the most important, the most impactful initiatives, and start on the road there. Don't confuse people with too many initiatives. A next very important part of business transformation is collaboration. And this is both for external and internal collaboration. It could very well be that as part of your new strategy, some of your competition would become an external collaborator or a partner. So you need to look at and realistically think about who is in the current pool, who is in the market, and to develop your future vision and your relationships based on who you could potentially partner with. In the future, we will see many more of these partnerships coming up, and we need to learn to navigate these boundaries of the film. There will be no clear line between your competition and your partner in the future, and it's going to be difficult to navigate this. But it's really important to shift our mindsets from this purely competitive view into the more progressive collaborative mindset. And on the other side, you have the internal collaboration. And I think many of us have been in one or other company where or we have firsthand experience where it's super, super difficult to talk across business units with your team. And this can really, really hobble your business transformation. If one of your business units, one of your arms is already executing on a strategy while the other one is still planning, the wheels will not work well together in this machine. And you can imagine how frustrating it can be when people are not developing at the same time the business transformation at the same speed. It's super, super important that instead of driving the messages up and down the different silos, you create the communication pathways across the company, across the different levels, right? And this is why, we have so many great tools. So it's important to pick the right tools to make that collaboration happen. We're still relying so much on emails and on spreadsheets and on PowerPoints to pass on information and to work together. So let's get updated and let's get upgraded. We need to shift and embrace the digital new world. There are synchronized tools, dashboards, platforms, online collaborations, task managers, data warehouses. If we want to bring the company into the 21st century, we need to educate our workforce to engage in this very different way. And this needs to be driven top down. So if you want your staff, your team to engage differently, you need to set the example. You need to shift your communication. You need to step away from the PPTs and use your dashboards and build on them and work with information real time across the globe. And this is really important because in the transformation, things will change and they will change rather quickly sometimes. So if you maintain or create silos, people will not start talking or they will even stop talking to each other. And you can imagine what that will do to the business transformation. It will just make it fail. And this brings me down to the most important part, I feel, which is the ever important communication. Now, we all know that communication is very, very important. And for some reason, we can still improve so much more. So in this case, I'm talking about the internal communication with your team, and as opposed to the external communication with your customers. Because if you have gaps in your external communication, usually, your public relations or your marketing or your account managers, they can try and patch these things back together, right? But there is nobody assigned for really proper internal communication. So the trickiest part when you're running a business is during a transformation period, especially, is what do you communicate and when and how? So we need to put in a lot of effort into this communication, depending on how fast you're deploying your business transformation, how little time you have, and how quickly are you making decisions in your executive meetings. So map out that communication plan so people know when they can expect an update. I think one of the biggest pitfalls here is that we just assume because somebody said something in a meeting that this information will automatically be passed down, cascaded down through all the management layers to the front staff. And I think that's very misleading because, let's face it, some people are just not good communicators. Some people don't know what they should be communicating, what part of the information can be passed on, what is confidential. And before they make a mistake, they would rather withhold that information than to pass it on. And for a very few people, it's actually in a business transformation, it's about politics. And then the information is actually intentionally withheld. So you can imagine how difficult that will make your business transformation if people across your business get different messages at different times. So as part of your internal communication plan, it's really important to think about how often you need to communicate and who should be drafting that communication and what decisions should be communicated. And have a clear communication structure, whatever suits your company style best or whatever communication platform you have. So Twitter-like internal networks where you as the chairperson, as the board member, or as the executive communicate in a regular, concise manner. If you're undergoing a business transformation, it may be that from week to week, informations and even decisions change, and your people will not know this, and they will get confused. And these confusions, they tire people out. It takes away energy from them that they should be spending on the business transformation. So that's very frustrating. I'm sure you can imagine how frustrating that can be. So it's really important that when you do make decisions and changes about the company, that you communicate them into the network as quickly and as directly as possible. Having a town hall every 3 months is very, very useful in a stable business environment, or when you want to communicate business results or how the company is progressing. But in these days and times, and as quickly as things are changing these days, 3 months is too stretched out, especially in a transformation phase. So look at how your business is built and which communication platforms you have at your disposal and really start using them. You need to set up a regular update format in which you communicate from the top to the last person what is happening at your company, so people have that clarity and that transparency. And sometimes it will be not good news, and they need to be packaged well. But at least you're creating an environment of transparency that makes people feel like they're part of the transformation, and they're not just being swept off in a wave and they don't know what's going to hit them next. Lastly, you need to give people a choice about how often they want to receive updates. Some people are very happy to receive a daily update about how things are going. Other people would prefer to have just a weekly summary. So you really also need to give people that choice of how and when they want to receive the updated information. So we've come to the end of the session, and I hope that these thoughts that I just shared with you may help you in thinking about how you can drive your next upcoming business transformation in a successful manner, because we will keep transforming and we will stay in the business of business transformation. And more importantly, how can you retain your most important talent? Because that's what it's all about, right? If you go through business transformation and it fails, chances are your best people already left your company out of frustration, leaving you in much more dire straits than before. So thank you for your time. It was a pleasure talking with you. And please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Always happy to discuss.
Thank you, Nicole, for the deep dive into the benefits and challenges of transforming the supply chain. Definitely some eye-openers there for our online attendees in the supply chain, logistics, and transportation business. For the next session, I would now like to call Saket Gaur, CEO Asia Pacific from the Himalaya Drug Company, to speak on manufacturing and customer centricity. Over to you, Saket.
Hello, my name is Saket Gore, and I'm CEO for the Asia Pacific region for the Himalaya Wellness Company. We talk about transformation, we talk about business transformation, and today I would want to talk about a subject which is linked to that, which is the changing consumer behavior. Today, most consumers are cluttered with a lot of information. They get cluttered with information on social media. They see environmental issues. They also are conscious about environmental issues. There is a lot of mistrust, I would say, lack of trust because of overdose of information, as well as when they're trying to shop, there is so much information available. But what we have seen, which is changing a lot in consumers' mind and space, and it is not only because of COVID or not because of pandemic, is the overall quest for wellness. This change we had noticed over the last 3 to 5 years, where consumers were getting more conscious about their health. They were getting more conscious about what they were consuming. They're getting a lot more conscious about the ingredients which were being used in their products. And I'm not talking only food, but about the products that they use topically, whether it is a toothpaste, whether it was a shampoo. Consumers were getting far more conscious on what are they using on their body versus what are they consuming inside also. So these were changes that we are already starting to see over the last 3 to 5 years. And especially last year after the pandemic started is where consumers, I would say, have shifted considerably. I would say shifted considerably on prevention mode than prevention mode is what they've actually shifted. Use of technology, in fact, is required right now. What we are seeing is earlier, our medical reps would go and meet doctors. They would go and meet doctors in the clinics. They would meet doctors in the hospitals. However, when we are unable to meet doctors by visiting there, we're using technology. These are medical reps, pharmaceutical managers who are actually briefing doctors on the product benefits. The best part about it is that doctors also have accepted this change. Earlier, a doctor would want to see a medical rep in person. So doctor is willing to meet the medical reps by use of technology. Same thing we also notice in case of patient. There are a lot of patients who are comfortable meeting or having e-meeting with the doctor. So the total shift, what we're seeing is doctors, the medical fraternity, as well as the patients also are comfortable with this new approach. We also notice a considerable shift in consumer behavior, where their approach to healthcare has changed. There is a lot more focus and emphasis on prevention. I was talking about increased interest in wellness, but prevention is the word. Prevention is actually the key word. And over the last 18 to 20 months in the industry, we noticed that there is almost 2.5 times increase on consumption of supplements. And this kind of changes actually are seen over a decade. So what we are actually seeing over a decade has happened in the last 15 to 18 months, which is consumers are consuming more supplements, and they're not just popping supplement. They're actually reading about the ingredients. They are wanting to know where the ingredients or the herbs which have been grown. And they're taking more and more care about their health as well as the children's health. Earlier, we noticed those changes happening with children's health. Today, you are seeing it happening with young adults also, as well as elderly patients who are actually consuming far more supplements. Nobody wants to fall ill. And this is what we are actually seeing happening in this space. Along with that, the biggest shift what we have actually seen is there is a new interest and I would not say the interest didn't exist earlier in Asia, but there is a renewed interest in Ayurveda, herbal, natural ingredient products. And a lot of us, when you actually go to buy your next coffee, you might see there's a turmeric latte available at Starbucks. The turmeric is known for its antiseptic and antibacterial benefits. But today, whether it is a Western consumers from the Western world or from Europe or even from Asia, today there is a lot more interest in turmeric. There is a lot more interest in ashwagandha. There is a lot more interest in ginseng. So this is what we are actually noticing changes happening. And this interest actually is because of a lot more information which is available. Consumers are reading about it and wanting to use them in their day-to-day products. What is actually making us change because of this is consumers are actually discovering a lot more products. Almost 87-88% discovery of products are happening digitally. The need of technology to actually ship faster. Consumers would earlier wait 7 days, 10 days for a product to be actually delivered to them after they bought on e-commerce. But today consumers are actually wanting the product to be made available to them within 24 hours to 48 hours. What we are noticing is a considerable shift on consumers' expectation. They would actually go to the store. There are stores where they will come, touch and feel the product, but perhaps would go back and shop at the convenience of their residence or in a different environment. So use of technology is actually getting more and more important, where consumers are discovering ingredient, consumers are discovering product, but their shopping pattern is changing. So interest in product is increasing, interest in natural herbal products is going up, but in terms of their shopping behavior is changing. The retail stores are not going away. The retail stores actually are important for the touch and feel of the product, but the consumer is actually shifting their purchase decisions. Instead of shopping or buying it in an offline channel, they are only touching and feeling the product in a store, but going and shopping at an e-commerce space. These are a few things which you are noticing. And as a wellness company, we actually are gearing up, giving more and more information to consumers and getting the products available to them in the format that they want. I hope this is useful to you.
Thank you, Saket, for your perspective as a top executive on manufacturing and customer focus. From the point of view of the industry and the market, definitely, this is one of the most important requirements in this post-pandemic phase of recovery. And with that, I would now like to call Professor Tag O'Donovan, Head of the School of Engineering and Physical Sciences at Heriot-Watt University, Dubai. So he will speak on regional trends in industrial and consumer robot. Over to you, Professor Tag O'Donovan.
Hello, my name is Tiger Donovan. I am the head of engineering and physical sciences on the Dubai campus of Heriot-Watt University. And I'm talking to you today about the role of robotics, essentially. So the title here is Regional Trends in the Adoption of Industrial and Consumer Robots. And I will do my best to try to explain, well, what robotics can do today, and hopefully give you some insights into how I think robotics will have an influence in our lives, in industrial practices, and how we as a society will engage with robotics in the future. So I have a few slides prepared and I'll just progress through them, and happy to take some questions at the end. So when I was asked to do this, my only ask that I had in response was to perhaps to try to broaden out the title a little bit. And I did that for what I thought was good reason. So instead of just focusing on robotics, I wanted to talk about autonomous and interactive systems as well. And the reason I do that is to, first of all, to try to address sometimes a misconception about what robotics are, or kind of a limiting conception of what robotics are. So I could be wrong, but many people, when they first think of a robot, they probably think of this image here on the left-hand side, something that we would call a humanoid robot, something that looks or tries to mimic human behavior with limbs, a head, something that it's able to move around, perhaps interact with people. You might also think of robots as mechanical systems that perform often a repetitive task, as you might see on the right-hand side there. So these kind of robots that are doing something in a manufacturing scenario. But robots, autonomous, interactive systems, there's so much more than that. The autonomy of robots, and the more they're becoming more autonomous, the more the whole area is developing. And then interactive systems. Interactive systems kind of fall within robotics as well, but to a certain extent may not have that kind of mechanical aspect to it. An interactive system is an algorithm. It is Alexa, Google, these type of things and how they work together. So in a way, robotics can be classified into many different areas. And one way of classifying them is in terms of intelligence. So I have written some points at the bottom. You can see humanoid robots. You might look at robotics as mechanical systems, autonomous vehicles, like electric vehicles now, then also looking at autonomous drive systems. And then an element of intelligence, going to artificial intelligence, digital interfaces, ones that perhaps recognize you and are a bit more aware of their surroundings, and even data mining and machine learning. So what do I mean by all those terms? Well, if I look at the hierarchy of intelligence, you might consider, first of all, a robot as something, a mechanical system, that is to a certain extent aware of its surroundings and has been programmed or asked to do a certain task. So a robot might be something that does a repetitive task. It would ideally do it at a very high accuracy and precision, and ideally at quite a quick pace, something that begins to replace a mundane task that a human might employ. But as you go up through that hierarchy, it's really got to do with the intelligence. So as they become more aware of their surroundings, so many more sensors where they can understand temperature, they can understand proximity, they can recognize images, they can recognize objects. They also have an element of autonomy. They're able to move around. And then as you go more and more sophisticated, can they use that input, that awareness of their environment, together with an algorithm, to make a decision? So instead of it being a repetitive or remote controlled or pre-programmed task, can they make a decision in a positive way? So they were designed to do a certain function that was a little bit more vague, and they had to decide themselves how to do it. And then as you get more and more sophisticated, can they learn? Can they learn about their environment? Now, an example you might be more familiar with is these kind of autonomous vacuum cleaners, the ones that go around when you're not at home and vacuum up. They begin to learn their environment. First of all, they stop bumping into walls. They begin to remember where the walls are, and they plan their way around. And ideally, with time, the more they do it, the more sophisticated they can get, and the more speedy, or they can perform the task much more quickly. And then, so this is an element of learning. This is where they have memory, and the more they do it, the more repetitive it is, the more they can optimize that task. So that's bringing in an element of artificial intelligence and then machine learning. The more data they have, and that's just a very simple example, the better they are. So my central point here is that robotics is not just your typical robot. It is about autonomous systems, and it's about interactive systems and how they can all work together. So let's look now a little bit about market trends and how the role that robotics and interactive systems and autonomous systems might have in the UAE, in the region here, and generally to service society. So I have a slide later about the fourth industrial revolution, what that really means. I think it's really important that we're aware of it, and because being aware of it is something where we can take full advantage of it. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a future slide. The other word is smart. What does smart mean? And we've heard a lot about smart Dubai and then smart nearly everything. How are systems learning, and how are systems becoming better at interacting with us? One really smart thing, and we deal with it all the time, is maybe a Google search, or when I watch one YouTube video, it suggests you might like this, or when I buy something on Amazon, it suggests me other people have bought things like this. Have you ever asked yourself why there's no loyalty card in Amazon? Well, because they already have your data. They know so much about where you click and what you've navigated to, and they're able to use that. Whereas obviously, if you're in Carrefour and you have a loyalty card, every time you click that, they're gathering data about your customer experience. What do you buy? And that helps them to even place certain things in a certain shelf on a certain way that might attract you as a category of customer to well, hopefully in a virtuous way, make your shopping experience more enjoyable. One of the key robotics and autonomous systems here in the UAE to pick out, though, is in the construction industry. There is an ambition here in Dubai for 25% of buildings to have 3D printed, to be 3D printed by 2030, which is not that long away. And that is one of the areas that is at the forefront of research, and is having a lot of impact today, and you can see it happening everywhere. It has huge potential to be more sustainable, to better use of materials, and to ensure things like the precision, the accuracy, and even the strength of the build from that. And also, obviously, the repetition of the build. Once it works once and has been proven, then it should be easy to replicate and do so in a quick time, driving down costs and hopefully improving standards while doing so in a sustainable way. And that obviously is one of the key goals that we have as a global society. And then we look at artificial intelligence. Sensors are so important to this. So how much a device or an object can learn? Can it face recognize? Can it understand your behavior? And what other things does it need to know that influence behavior? That leads to, obviously, artificial intelligence controllers that can become smarter with time. And as we become more connected, and connection is key here, through maybe the Internet of Things, it's all well and good gathering data in a closed form in a small environment. However, if you can connect that data through the internet, so you're gathering data from your user experience in all different parts of Dubai or all different parts of the world, cybersecurity becomes a significant issue, because data is power, and that power needs to be protected and used, obviously, in a good and virtuous way. So cybersecurity is one of the biggest growth industries, especially here in the Middle East. But the power of AI, the other ones I wanted to focus on, particularly here where healthcare is such a big industry, is genetics and digital healthcare. So a lot of it to do, and you could argue a lot with COVID, where people are able to self-diagnose, we're able to remote monitor or provide as much information to doctors remotely, is becoming much more prevalent in society, and all fits within this whole area. And again, feedback to how important cybersecurity is, therefore. So to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, well, it's in our name. James Watt was perhaps responsible for the first industrial revolution with the steam power plant. But now that we're getting to the fourth industrial revolution, we're looking at a rapid increase in development again. It is data is power, and this big data, and depending on how that data is used, how it is used to make decisions, how it is used to improve user experience. That's what's happening with the fourth industrial revolution. So what is the role of robotics in society? Well, it helps to develop technology. It is very important in improving user and customer experience, and to stay competitive. So if you have a customer base, there is a certain element now of expectation that your customer experience is going to improve all the time. So whether it is checking into a hotel and your profile is already known by the hotelier, they know your preferences or what time you'd likely to check in and what you like to do, these data should be and are becoming more and more available and improving the experience. So you are no longer, or should no longer, just be an other person, but you are treated as the individual that you are with your data being available. And then, but from a manufacturing perspective, it's about process efficiency. And often many processes are very, very complicated with multiple variables that can influence the overall process, but also the eventual product. The more you can train these artificial intelligence algorithms, the better they can identify patterns that can overall improve the eventual product that is to be produced. So it really is about artificial intelligence is about pushing to the fore new ideas that perhaps haven't come from the person, but they're coming from the big data that is there to identify patterns that would have otherwise remained unseen. And this leads us to the power of data. So how much data are we able to collect? The value of that data, because if you are to use that data, then how can you identify patterns in it? So you need to have, first of all, the quantity of the data, but also the quality of the data that will help individuals, help algorithms to make decisions that are positive. It will bring in questions about ethics as those decisions are being taken away often from individuals, but those are also challenges that will face this industry in the future. So that is essentially the artificial intelligence. We individuals still train the neural networks or whatever it is of the artificial intelligence, but we also train it how to learn. And on that, you'll probably have to come up with codes of ethics and how well that is going to perform. So what is the future vision for innovation? Well, for us, it's looking at virtual innovation, the virtual experience. As you'll probably know, consumers are moving away from tangible things and moving more into the experiential thing. The experiential market is the one that is increasing. So virtual innovation is very much a growth industry, and that also brings in robotics. Physical validation will be important, and we as an institution work on collaboration, and we're very much customer focused. So virtual environments are ones that are growth. While I have an image here of virtual reality, I personally think that there is probably more growth, more potential in augmented realities, things that are going to enhance our user experience in the real environment, but by giving us much, much more information about what is going on in the virtual environment. So it's the synergy, or it's the combination of those two environments that will have a lot of power. So looking with my final slide here, looking to the future, where do we see the growth areas? Well, it's going to be smart homes and smart cities. So essentially, these are two different scales of the same thing. So to what extent is my home autonomous? How much does it run itself? How much of it is a subscription service from my TV channels to my fridge and my delivery of food to the control of the lighting, sound, and everything? How much does it learn about my pattern, and how much of that is decided for me? Smart cities then obviously on a much grander scale. How do we link in everything from healthcare to driving around our cities to synergistically combining different dwellings, different industries, so that we can even be much more sustainable. Some of the key challenges that we have at the moment will be last mile delivery. That's, if you were to talk about sustainability, not just in terms of financial sustainability, but in terms of environment, then last mile delivery is one of the biggest ones. And there's lots of trials going on at the moment about how drones and autonomous vehicles can deliver your products to your homes in the last mile autonomously. Product manufacture is another, and there is something to be said for maybe doing a lot more product manufacture a lot more locally, using robots, for example, for autonomous manufacture. So maybe we're trading more in the design in future. That's what I buy when I'm buying from Amazon, perhaps. And then when I have my key code or my QR code that I've bought that, I could go to a local manufacturer and ask them to manufacture it for me using 3D printing, laser cutting, and very rapid manufacturing process, cutting down again on the transport of goods as well as packaging and things like that. And so there's a huge role that robotics could have in that. So, and that is just to summarize on that high note. I think one of the largest challenges that are facing society today is sustainability. And I think that robotics, autonomous and interactive systems have a significant role to play in ensuring that we are able to live up to our sustainability commitments. So I thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take a question.
Thank you, Professor Nago Donovan, for the deep dive into world of robotics, which is soon to become a key facilitator of industrial, business, and digital transformation. We now move to the second panel discussion of this event. This is the panel discussion on AI, powered by the IGO AI Forum. And I'm pleased to welcome Ahmed Bouhaza, Vice Chairman of the Bahrain ICT Society, to moderate this panel discussion and introduce our panelists as well. So over to you, Ahmed Bouhaza.
Good days, everybody. Happy to see all of you here in this event talking about AI transformation. Before introducing the panelists, I would like to just give you some brief numbers that I will think it will be a base for our today meeting. There is 75 million jobs will be displayed by 1 year from now. This is according to World Economic Forum. There's also around 30% of job worldwide will be lost by 2030. This is Forrester research. 40% of location-based jobs will be automated around the world by 2030. This is furniture newsletter. At the same time, while these risks will make all of us worried that we will lose jobs, and this is not one or two or thousands, this is millions of jobs. At the same time, AI is expected to contribute to almost 16 trillion to the global GDP. And this is according to PwC report. And 133 million new jobs will be created by AI just a year from now. This is according to Statistia. There is also around 60 million new jobs will be created worldwide by a year from now. This is another statistics by World Economic Forum. And there's a huge revenue expected by next year and by 2025. And there is by 2030. There is a huge potential. There is a lot of opportunities. At the same time, there is a huge risk. There is a contradiction on these numbers, where we want our panelists to really help us understand what is the situation and how we can be with me today four amazing and really great speakers. I have Chiranjeev Roy, Dr. Chiranjeev Roy. He's Senior Vice President for Data Science and Analytics. He is also a member in Forbes Technology Council. He's also entrepreneur and research in international technology law, AI governance, and technology policy. He's involved in rendering innovation policy solutions in the domain of AI ethics. Dividi. She is a practicing advocate at the Supreme Court of India with a background of engineering in AI and IT, MBA in international business, Hagu Alam in public and private international law, PG in international environment law, along with couple PGs in women and gender studies. Her primary focus is now in public policy advisory, alongside responsibility, trustworthy, and ethics of AI in connection to law. She is an active contributor in several international think tanks and is also international speaker. I have also Mr. Aviv Vardan. He is managing partner, Indic Pacific Legal Research, and also chairperson, managing trustee, Indian Society of AI and Law. I have also with me Mr. Sriram Bhargav. He is head of AI and intelligent automation. He is very passionate in AI, robotics evangelist. He is also head of AI and intelligent automation for Provenio. As well, he is also, in his previous role, was the head of AI and automation and web technologies for Asia Pacific. This is a very short summary of their profiles, and we will start trying to understand where we are in AI, and then we will be trying to discover the potential for AI, and we will also see what we should expect in future. So the first question will be going to Dr. Chiranjeev Roy. I would like to know from your experience. We heard about AI since 1950s. I'm not there during 1950s, but we know that that time the concept was there. People, they were talking about it. The definition started from 1950s, but suddenly in the last 3 years, everybody started talking about AI. Where is AI since then?
Thank you, Ahmed, and greetings to everyone today who have joined in. Of course, as Ahmed said, even I was also not there when AI started having a discussion. I was not even born. But what has happened throughout these last few years, every innovation, right? We call AI as an innovation, as in initially AI started with an automation, and today AI is called as the new oil or the new soil, whatever that you want to call it, right? AI is an enabler today. And what that means is the best computer in the world which can do processing. When the evolution of computer happened, which is the evolution of technology, artificial intelligence has been an enabling intelligence methodology for every human being. Please do understand that human brain cannot be surpassed by any artificial intelligence enabler or a technology. Artificial intelligence needs to understand certain problems, certain topics, how human being understands, right? And try to optimize it according to how the situation's changed. So it needs to sustain on its learning. Over the last 3 decades, what has happened is that during the hype phase, every innovation goes through hype, right? AI also went through that hype. And during this hype phase, the contributors thought it will sabotage the way human beings work. However, in the last 3 years, as Ahmed just mentioned, or 5 years, I would say, its actual implementation to help human being take certain decisions has become much more commoditized. What do we see in the future? AI can certainly never displace human beings. What it will do is it will understand each and every area. It started with the internet, e-commerce, OTT platforms like Netflix and so on and so forth. It will understand the overlying data behind a particular process, right? It will understand how the people work with that data, and people will train AI to start doing few things which needs to solve the problem. Even if it is law, it is anybody in the traditional environments. But as like every innovation, you just cannot set a bulb and you will feel that the entire city is lit. There is an architecture that needs to be built. It needs to be non-biased, right? I don't want the light bulb to be only in my home. It has to lit the entire city, right? Same way, artificial intelligence needs to evolve along with the human being. Human being takes artificial intelligence as an enabler and makes it viable for the um, world to work. That is how AI will evolve. So that's where we can stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiranjeev. Coming back to Divya, as Chiranjeev said, AI is innovation, and it needs time to be mature and be adapted. Legal laws, ethics, it is always blamed that it is not following the digital transformation needs for having the right laws. Even at the same time, there is no much solutions that satisfy this industry. So do you think with AI, there will be fast pace and there will be leapfrogging where we will have the laws and the ethics ready and mature to make this successful? What is your view, Divya?
Wow, thank you, Ahmed. It's quite intriguing question. I won't say we, Stanford is working on AI and law since 1956, I would say. And they also say the same thing as Chiranjeev said, that AI is an enabler and we don't have to see it as a threat for ourselves. Like when computers came, every human, at least in developing and developed countries also, they were like, we will lose our jobs, we'll have no jobs left. But then computer also became enabler in finding new jobs. Job profile will change. It's not like we'll be jobless. And obviously human brain cannot be surpassed by AI. I see AI as a baby. Like we feed baby all the information and they grow and they tell us that we are beyond you. It's similar with AI. We are threatened by that. Whenever I'm teaching my students, I teach LLM kids, and I was telling them that there is no way AI can bypass anything, whatever we can think of. We are thinking right now, we are sitting here, we are thinking about only AI. There is a possibility to tomorrow there will be some super intelligent AI like in movies, like in Transformers or all those amazing movies. There are robot movies and iRobot and all those. They show that how much we can think as humans. That is not going to happen with AI anytime sooner. At least not for me. I never say that. And when it comes to lawyers or legal aspects of it, what I think is whatever way we would try and bind AI in some periphery, that is not going to help us. It has never till now helped humans. If we are restricted at some point, we tend to find another way to bypass that law or responsibility or duty. Similarly, it will happen with AI also, because the way I would give two examples. There is something which Stanford is right now working, where I was learning a lot from their professors. They are talking about foundational model now. They are talking about computational law as much as they can. They are trying to bind it somewhere, which is not going to help us. It has never helped humans also. Like if you or me, we are bound by so many laws, we tend to try and find a place to run away, or to tend to find a way to bypass that law system itself. If we are restricted in one country, we migrate to some other country. So AI will definitely shift to some other way. It's not like AI is going to take on human race. I don't think we should be worried about that, at least for not next 2-3 generations. But what I find very, very helpful with technology, see, I'm sitting in a village right now and I'm connected with you. I'm connected with pretty much anybody I want in the world. So technology is helping. And for me, technology is actually helping women. Technology is helping environment. Technology is actually helping everywhere. If we know how to use technology, I'm putting this condition, this asterisk over there, that conditions are applied. If you know how to use technology, you will never be bypassed. You will never lose sight of it. Technology will not take over. My women, where I work for my NGO, my women are now connected by internet and they learn from pretty much any professor in the world. I'm fortunate enough to provide that. That's because of technology. And you can see, this is my village, this is my ancestral home, and I'm connected. This is what I was trying to show everyone around here for past 15 years. And all of a sudden, I shouldn't say this out in public probably that COVID has helped, but it has helped. We have taken a jump of more than 10 years now, which we could never have thought before, but it has happened. Now, coming back to your question, again, I'll say they will not take over. They can never take over. Because we'll find an off switch for sure. It is going to happen. We'll find some off switch for AI also. Even if it becomes super intelligent AI, doesn't matter. So for me, we are not going anywhere except without the help of human brain. If some guy finds a way of not giving us off switch to AI, then maybe they will take over, but not yet. And legal fraternity, I don't think they have to fear about it. They should rather start learning it. That's what I keep on telling my colleagues as well. Don't think of it as an enemy for your work. They will not find a contract which will be so clear that a human brain cannot make a better one from. Because we come up with some problem with for every solution, some answer for every question, and some question for every answer for that matter. So they cannot find a perfect contract. And I do draft contracts. I know AI can develop good contracts, but not better than me, for sure. And I learn from the best people. So that's what I can say. And I think I may have bypassed a couple of minutes extra. So apologies from my side. I'll now refrain from speaking any further. I'll do it later. Thank you so much, Ahmed. I hope I have pinpointed something.
Actually, you opened a wide subject that we can discuss the whole time, and it is very nice. I was discussing it with my mother, and she said the same thing. They will never replace the intelligence of human. But when you talk about with the scientists, they will say they have the abilities that human they cannot do. For example, if you put indicator or sensor in your body, it will see from your body motion if there is a break or a problem that a normal doctor will not be able to discover it. But collecting these information, and sometimes these information are collected without my permission, this is not ethical. And the same way, likewise, maybe driver job will be lost because there is an AI driver. But if the AI driver, he crashed me in the road, who to blame? Should I blame the driver or the owner of the car or the manufacturer? I think this is a question to you,
Ahmed,
Abhi
that
Vardan.
it's not coming to India anytime sooner. It's not. AI cannot
You don't
drive in
know.
India,
Maybe
for sure.
maybe in not in this village, but it will be in another place. But let's see. How mature is our laws? How we will be?
I think we'll go to Abhi Vardan. Just giving your answer, Ahmed. The best GPU, which is in processing and technology, uses 1 billion neurons. Our brain is 86 billion neurons. So we are 86 times faster than the best computer. Right? So we cannot never replace. So it's never be replaced.
But some jobs will be replaced. The idea, and now 75%
I would say
of
some jobs would be enhanced, right? So you do not need to create a draft, but you would enhance your methodology to take decisions.
But don't you think this is a diplomatic answer? It will be enhanced. For you, you are able to change yourself. But for many people, they are having difficulties. For example, Kodak. If you remember the story of Kodak, they have the digital camera concept. They built it inside their premises. They did not introduce it. Who introduced it? Sony. In 1981, Sony introduced digital camera. It was there in 1975 with Kodak, but they were not able to leave the chemical work that they are doing and go for digital. So the problem sometimes on the workers, they are not able to change. I remember in my age, many people, they were writing letters in the road, in the market. For people, they have table and they write it by hand. And when computers came, they've been replaced. Okay, what is their job now? They are at home because they were not able to adapt and learn. So definitely some people will lose their job because of their capacity. But I want to just really understand our backbone. If you help us, Abi Vardan, what is our backbone? What is our where is our protection? How mature is it?
A very excellent question, I must say, and I agree with the panelists that artificial intelligence is not going to be as technocratic as the hypes and the science fiction stories do reflect largely. However, having that said, we have to understand that technology is something which has various characteristics. It's not just about their scientific features. For example, we could not have imagined after Alfred Nobel was the person behind creating a dynamite that the First and Second World War could happen. And why did that happen was not just the political game. It had also other considerations as how technology's growth and its trends and the way scientific research community used to see technology was much important there. Technology is sophisticated and also transformed during the Cold War era. So after the Cold War, as we are in a multipolar global order, where we see that artificial intelligence, blockchain, and other technologies are getting some edge, of course, it is scientifically true that artificial intelligence technologies, because see, everything is not AI. They are just, because it's an abstract term, which simply means that they are machine learning based systems, or let's say AI systems in a very average sense. When they have an influence per se, the question is, what sort of influence does that have? What are the economic problems? So on your question, my very simple answer would be that currently the maturity is yet to come. And this is not just about the Indian experience, it's also about the American and other experiences which are there. And the reason is that, yes, there are tools which are able to replace and they are able to make accessibility possible. You have to understand that the history of technology shows that accessibility is the main feature why technology works. For example, the example of personal computing. Steve Jobs came up with the Macintosh, and after that, Steve Jobs failed, then next came, and then he came back again. But we all know that when Windows and Apple came up with their operating systems and their personal computing avenues, things changed radically. And America became a leader, which actually it originated in which is personal computing. And then, of course, now there are competitors across the world, including Huawei, even some are in India, maybe. The OS is a different issue, but in personal computing, things are happening faster. So competition is something which is there. But to be very honest in this, I think to end this very briefly, I would say that the maturity in law has to come. It can be simple in very mediocre and normal things like, okay, fine, I have to file a contract. There are some very basic formalities which I have to attain. Can I automate it? I can tell you one example and then I end it. And then, of course, I'll take further questions accordingly. The Election Commission of India has come up with an AI assistant, which is now telling people that, okay, fine, you want to register your voter ID. How will you do it? Using chat, which it's like a chat, like a chatbot. They're saying, okay, fine, it's a chatbot. Now you tell me what details you want. I will help you. They have done the same with Arogya Setu app. And I think the government of India will do in terms of education also with AI. So let us see. I think there is a much matter of influence and competence as how technology influences us. It's not about whether it is capable. Of course, capability is something which is a very important matter. But what are the anthropological implications is something I very much look forward to.
Hello, yes. I think the voice was cutting. I didn't hear the last word, but I think I spiced it up at the beginning when I said there's a risk of jobs and there's also opportunities. And although I'm agreeing with all of you, but I will be against you here and I will say AI will win and will take over our jobs and our life. And also to see also from a Siram experience, if I have agenda for AI, I want to do AI. Most of companies, they heard about AI, the benefit of AI. They want to do AI. The minister drive his ministry guys do AI. He don't know what is AI, what does he want, what he want. But guys, start this project. Where we should start? What is the priority? How to build our? Can you just tell us what is our key, let's say, focus and direction, Sir Ram?
Sure, Ahmed. Thank you. Every enterprise today is struggling with multiple challenges, if I may say that. I often try and simplify explaining what are the priorities organizations or enterprises should take. I hope you've all seen this. This is a Rubik's Cube. This is what I use to step my day in the lockdown. But let's consider this as an enterprise. Let's consider this as an organization. There are multiple colors. The colors could stand for productivity and efficiency, reporting, customer experience, technology, risk and compliance, shareholder value. Literally every enterprise today is struggling with all of this. And essentially, there are humans doing this constantly to ensure that it comes to one color. So that means that everything is synchronized. But automation, essentially, with the help of AI and machine learning and related technologies, is helping organizations do it faster. And that is, let's all agree that it is very critical that people understand this. But when you juggle all of this, traditionally organizations have worked in a particular manner and have operated in a particular manner, but all of a sudden now, they are now presented with technologies like AI, machine learning, and they have to adopt it at very quick pace and very quick cycles in order to show time to value and show outcomes. So what organizations have to be clearly doing is, number one, the first and foremost thing is they have to educate their people. Whether it is at the top layer, the medium layer, and the bottom layer, everybody has to be educated about artificial intelligence, about the benefits of artificial intelligence. And for the most important point, that it is not there to replace jobs, it is there to augment humans. As long as everybody understands that it is a technology which can augment humans, humans will become better. We have all seen this green revolution, industrial revolution, whether it is machines. Humans will never allow machines to take over. I can make this bold statement. So at the end of the day, what organizations are now doing, apart from education, the second one is essentially look at adopting these technologies fairly quickly and straightforward into every project. People have this problem of, will it work? Will it give accuracies? I kind of always keep saying to enterprises that come out of the closet and start adopting AI. Enough of POCs, enough of pilots. Let's put it into production. It will not kill you. It will not take over the world. So essentially what organizations have to come out of the closet and start utilizing AI, because there is enough out there which proves that AI can be used ethically. AI can be used for explaining what it has done, which we call as explainable AI. So, and it is risk-free at this stage because there is enough out there, enough projects out there, enough examples out there to prove that AI is there to stay, and AI is there to scale for every organization. Thanks, Ahmed.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I think I will spice it up back again with the expert in data science. Tell us what is the trend and how we can empower AI so it can take over a human role. Are with me, Chiranjeev? Yes.
Yeah, I just lost you in between. If you can just repeat once again.
Okay, so the question, I want to spice it up back again. Since you are expert in data science, what is the trends? What is the new practices? And how we can empower AI with the data science, so it can take over our role.
Fantastic. So I will converge from where Sriram left, and he very well said that the utilization or actually creating some value through artificial intelligence lies on three different things. It's the people and the process and the technology. We are very well equipped on technology today. What needs to be there is the people and the process. Now, people, of course, we all, right? And everybody needs to adapt to AI. The process part is the most typical part, and that is where artificial intelligence brings in the co-enablers or tools in this perspective, which is data analytics, data engineering, and data sciences. Data sciences, through its data engineering and data analytics or visualization, helps human being to start developing decisions or try to come up with decisions from the perspective. One of the examples is, since I come from the autonomous driving and self-driving area majorly, right, as in manufacturing automotives, when a car is driving on the road with a cruise control with no human intervention, it would personally not be able to understand whether it should be saving the human being or the cat, right? It is a very difficult decision for that perspective, and it needs to be trained. How do we train the algorithms? That is through the kind of data that we put in. The data is learned by the data science algorithms, right? In practice, not more than 5% of data science algorithm, which has been invented for the last, and data science is all about majorly mathematics, physics, and the linear knowledge that we have. So that brings into the picture that you understand the process, that this is a human being, this is his features, this is the structure, and this is a cat. This is the kind of decision that needs to be made, right? That empowers the signal to the car to take a certain amount of decision. The car should be able to understand that the human being can stop because it is able to see there is a car which is coming. Cat does not have that kind of a brain, right? So you need to make decision much more fast. Data science, through its entire pipeline of data, learns. The automation of data science is what we call as machine learning, basically. And that is what is put into any kind of methodology or the product that we put in. That's the 4 stages of AI product: engineering the data, analyzing the data, creating scientific methodologies on the data. And once you have what needs to be solved, right, which is, we call it hypotheses, we go ahead and put it into an automation framework, which is created by machine learning or deep learning.
Excellent. Excellent. So with all these learnings and machine learning and deep learning, Ms. Divya, how can this help cyber legal issues related to gender?
You have mixed so many in one place. Now I have to explain everything from my perspective and my understanding. So when I started learning AI, it was almost 16 years ago, when it was only neural networks, nothing else, because that's when it came in India. I passed my engineering in 2005, so that's pretty much the end of what I understood then. And when I moved on, I started understanding more and more about human psychology as well. That psychology shows that when you want to learn something, you will determine yourself, you will learn, and you will earn, and nobody can replace, like Sriram sir said, that humans won't let any machine or AI, or for that matter, anything, to take over human race itself. So for me, AI or anything is definitely, like everyone is saying, is an enabler. when it comes to cyber issues or anything, I always keep on saying during talks that people have to be aware. That awareness part is definitely missing from a huge number of population. Like, if they are not aware how to use even their mobile devices, if they do not have an idea how to access a website, what website to access and what not to access, these are very basic things I'm talking about, because I do work on ground level, so I see that firsthand. So my problem arises as in when people say, what is wrong in it? If somebody is taking my data, what is wrong in it? Even if they're processing that data, what is wrong in it? And this is not coming from illiterate people. It's from the people who are very well established in society. Even my parents, my mom is a psychology professor, and she ended up saying, what is wrong in it? It's okay. Kya farak padta? It doesn't matter if your data is going somewhere. So I had to tell her that you are enabling a whole company, you and your kind of people, by providing them data. That is how cyber misuse happens. And you have to understand the cyber psychology before blaming it to technology, because who's running the technology is another aspect. So you have to understand who's actually running that particular technology. Why is it happening?
Okay.
Why is our privacy being infringed? Like you said in your last statement that privacy is infringed. Somebody is taking your data. Why are you providing the data? Stop using smartphones. Right? So it's a very simple answer. If you end up saying all these things, it becomes negative statement. But for me, to make people understand, you have to be a little bit harsh at times. I think that should be there. And in last question, when Abhivardhan was answering about government of India has introduced AI in class 8th now. They have an option of learning it from class 8 in India. And it's almost similar in US and other countries where I work with. So that's how it grows. And for you to understand how you have to be cyber secure, you have to understand. Everybody has a phone.
Okay.
We reached it out, but then we did not teach them. We have no cyber awareness. We have no AI awareness. Frankly, we have no awareness of our own rights, be it cyber, be it anything, doesn't matter. So I think I have again crossed my time. It's just my passion area, so I end up speaking a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. Yeah, we have 10 minutes, and I want to also give the chance to Abhivardhan and Shilaram to give their views. For Abhivardhan, I want to know, in the legal side, how we can make the laws and ethics more enablers, and what do you think our future in this aspect?
With the rest of the panelists, I must say very humbly that the problem is that law can connect with technological disruptions whatsoever they are. Let's take the simplest example. So recently there's a very famous case, and it has become famous on social media, which is known as Thaler. I think it is the Thaler case, which is related to a software known as Dabus. And the inventor of Dabus, a human being, has gone to a particular court in Australia for the particular aspects of registering it under patent law, which is intellectual property law. So what they have done is that, okay, Dabus is the AI, which is actually, which has invented something particularly. Now the judge has given a very interesting opinion, which is related to your question and why it is. The judge has said that yes, you can say that there's a difference between patentee, somebody who will hold the patent's ownership, and somebody who invents. There can be possibilities where artificial intelligence systems can develop something. But the problem is that, and the judge rightly pointed out, that the issue is not whether the AI can be invented. The issue is what kind of AI you have and what many kinds of systems you have. It's also about, it's kind of like an animal kingdom. It's a diaspora of various technologies. And that is something which comes into being, and that has a very big role to play. Now, with respect to the larger part of the question as to how it can become a reasonable enabler, I have one very simple answer to give. And the answer is, if we focus on the anthropological problem here, I think a bigger solution to this is Let us focus on a bottom-top approach. And that bottom-top approach starts with your subordinate courts, as well as your panchayats, as well as I'm giving the Indian example so that we can correlate it with the global example. So I'm giving the Indian example. You have your subordinate juridical authorities, you have your panchayats, and all of them have a proper natural language processing analysis because there are many regional languages. Diversity is something important. At the same time, there was a paper on how English is imposed using AI by Timnit Gebru, who left Google. She said it very clearly that the problem is that you can't just make everything monopolized under the same language. So diversity has to be protected. This is a very important cultural as well as human rights question, because there are very diverse communities across the world, whether Asia, whether Europe, whether North America, whether Latin America. So that part, if it is understood from a ground level perspective as to what it can be, anything, it can be any mediocre or normal AI technology which is being used for, I don't know, verification purposes or identification purposes or education, very basic education stuff. It can be for adults who have not been literate enough and they want to learn something new, not just English, but also other languages and maybe other things, because skill development has a lot to do with things which actually, as to accessibility, how much are you understanding? It's beyond language. As Ms. Divyaji rightly pointed out, I remember in the national education policy, the government of India has decided to use machine learning to translate various, I believe, NCRT books. I don't know. It's the CBSE NCRT books into various regional languages: Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, Bhojpuri. I want it in more. There are hundreds of languages in India. It should happen in more. So it's a very good way to protect nativity and then go on with the development. So the legal development, it's not that, okay, fine, some fine day you will come in court and give a judgment and then, you just impose it and then the solution is reached. It's not possible. The best idea is you need a lot of research, you need anthropological and data research at the same time, and then you need to ensure that at a community level, at every district or maybe most districts where it is democratized, is a country. So yeah, that's it, I would end.
Thank you. Yeah, nice. Thank you. Yeah, I think in the recording, maybe it will not be seen. Divya was saying Australia also has given copyright to AI, but honor human only. So coming to Sir, during the pandemic, everybody struggled, but maybe small and medium businesses will have faced the worst situation because they don't have the right stand or the right capabilities. But knowing that AI is for many organizations also simple and can be attained, it is not only for large enterprises. So how small and medium businesses can utilize AI and machine learning to leverage increase in efficiencies and bypass these difficult times?
Sure, great question. Thanks, Ahmed. Look, as everybody knows, the pandemic has created havoc with many businesses across the world. There are several companies who are kind of forced to adopt technology to ensure that they are afloat and they are, back in normalcy. Let me take an example of Australia and give you a sense of how Australian small and medium businesses have used AI to kind of improvise what they're doing and improve efficiencies and transform. The example is about freight, transport, and logistics companies. In Australia, road freight is predominant mode of transport for urban, interurban, and regional freight. It's part of the supply chain for literally most of the imports in Australia. Even resource industries, which which heavily relies on coastal shipping for internal aspects, they still depend on road freight. Now, typically, when freight companies, especially during the pandemic, they are completely under the pump in terms of the amount of work which they're getting, because freight and transportation and logistics is the most critical part when you have lockdowns and shutdowns. So companies essentially can often spend multi-million dollars on freight charges every year. We've seen companies spending 25, 40, 50, $100 million every year on just freight charges, right? The volumes and the value of freight essentially it's a continuous process, and it's almost a day-to-day process. I'll take an example of simple invoice processing, which essentially has to be done every day in order to pay companies and for the services which they have done. So what essentially is a pain point in this area is that the invoice validation for freight related aspects has to be checked line by line. Every invoice has to be read line by line. Every invoice has to be validated line by line against things like fuel levies, rate cards, demurrage charges, and those kind of things. Now, what has happened is during this pandemic, where people will really have to attend to other people's needs and do some important work instead of checking line by line and validating information, people have turned to AI. Now, imagine artificial intelligence looking at all the invoices, reading it line by line, ripping through line by line, and essentially calculating every single charge on the particular invoice, which essentially means that it is literally ripping everything out of the invoice, extracting everything out of the invoice, classifying everything out of the invoice, and essentially instead of the human going and using a calculator and calculating everything, it is calculating every single every single line item, and then telling the human being, look, this is green, this is red, but this is orange, right? Orange means there is a $1 problem here, versus the red means that, look, somebody has created a big mistake. Imagine giving back almost close to 4 or 5 hours for a person who's actually handling about 2,000 or 3,000 shipments in a day. So this is the real value which AI is providing. This is a simple example. Now, what it has done, it has prevented almost close to 13 to 15% of revenue leakage for companies. Just by AI looking at invoices and validating them and telling the human being saying that this is good, bad, or ugly, it has prevented revenue leakage of almost close to anywhere between 10 to 15%. Now, obviously, the technology has to understand everything. So it's a combination of several complex technologies, including optical character recognition, intelligent character recognition, natural language processing, custom machine learning models, RPA, which is robotic process automation, then intuitive human in the loop layers for exception handling and stuff like that, and essentially a comprehensive analytics layer, which is backed by proper data science. So here's an example of how you can take the simplest of processes, apply AI, but get huge benefits, which essentially is at 10 to 15% of revenue leakage. So here's one example of how small and medium-sized businesses companies, now this is applied for FMCG companies, retail companies, all small and medium mom and pop shops who are essentially struggling with manpower, are turning towards simple solutions from AI and making it completely transforming their business process. So just an example, and I'm sure this is across the world, people are using.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Saram. The organizer are asking me to conclude, but they asked me to give you yes or no, but I'll give you one statement. What do you think, who will win the battle, AI or people? Chiranjeev, can you say your point? Just
both will coexist. So they will share the medal. They will share the medal. It will coexist.
They will coexist. And Divya?
He took my statement. They have to coexist. I was not about to say they will. They have to coexist because there is no other way.
Okay. What about you, Bivardan?
I believe the people more than the AI, but there should be a proportional relationship. So I definitely agree with all.
What about you, Saram?
I believe that AI and humans will coexist, but humans will always have the upper hand.
Okay, nice. I think the time is too short. For this discussion, lovely discussion. I enjoyed it. It should be spent for hours, but it was very short. I think the team, the delegates, the panelists have answered the questions. Data science is very important for AI to learn and build the capacity and abilities. We have great capacity and abilities in the laws and legal side. Can help if we think about AI as expensive and it will spend a lot of money, think about the losses that you are encountering because of not applying AI. It have a huge potential for small and mini business as well enterprises. For me, although I sound that like pro AI and robotics, but I agree with all the team. I think AI is a key enabler. It will help. Human will be always on top, but there is losses in jobs because people ability to change. They have to change. They have to adapt. They have to learn. They have to know that we'll be going to another shift, and this shift for them to learn and change. Otherwise, they will definitely lose their jobs. Thank you very much. Thank to GEC Media Group, and looking forward to see you in the coming future.
Thank you, Ahmed Buhaza, for that for leading that great panel discussion on all various aspects of artificial intelligence, and great inputs and discussion and comments from our panelists as well. Large number of key takeaways and good learning. Great session. And with that panel discussion, we now move to the last session of the BTX Road Show 2021 Asia edition. And this is the much awaited BTX Awards. So I'm now pleased to announce the BTX Road Show 2021 Asia Awards, which have been awarded across 3 categories. These include the BTX Top Executive Awards, where we recognize leadership driving transformation. The BTX Enterprise Awards, where we recognize success stories in transformation. And the BTX Solution Awards, where we recognize solutions enabling transformation. So with these 3 categories and large number of nominees coming in across the Asia region, it's my pleasure to let the awards now begin. What a lineup of awardees, and what a great show. The Asia region definitely leading in terms of the number of transformation entries and the number of organizations taking an initiative to transform. Executives and enterprises leading in the journey of business transformation across the Asia region. And we just saw the top of them. Congratulations to all the winners of the BTX Awards. And with that, as all things come to an end, we come to the end of this BTX Road Show 2021 Asia edition. Once again, and on behalf of GEC Media Group, Global CIO Forum, and sponsor partners, Aruba HPE, Pure Storage, Riverbed, Veeam, Western Digital, Finesse, Veritas, Silver Peak, Archon, Cork, International Group of Artificial Intelligence, IGO AI, and the Global CISO Forum. All the speakers here and the panelists. I thank all the attendees for sitting through all the excellent keynote sessions, as well as the questions that were posted for the speakers through the chat option. Goodbye, and we look forward to meeting you all in person and face-to-face at the next edition of the BTX Road Show 2021 South Gulf edition on 8th September at the Conrad Hotel in Dubai. Goodbye once again, and thank you.